What's going on, everyone? Season Gaming Bitcast back with episode 198, and I'm laughing already because we were just arguing about Fast and Furious before we went live, and I really don't want to talk about it today. But
well, I can already see the chat and Travis coming after me, so
that's right.
We're gonna have a fun morning.
Hey, Fast and Furious was the first thing out of your mouth before you said even Bitcast. So I think at this point it's got a prominent place in the show.
Oh yeah, Fat Boy Horror is already talking about it. So good morning, everyone. I am your host Ainsley Bowden, joined by, as always, this lovely panel. I'm going to start with the dapper-looking Tie Guy Travis this morning. Not that you're not always dapper-looking, but especially dapper-looking this morning.
I'm going outside today, which is a rarity. So, I have to zhuzh it up a little bit.
Get that sunscreen on, boy.
Yeah. I never leave home without it, Dan. I'll have it go.
Good man.
My melanin is in need of assistance on this. So,
by the way, I want to point out you did not say McClunky, and I'm severely disappointed.
I did not say McClunky. I did say melanin. Kind of close. I don't
know. And to his right on your screen, the lovely host of Virtual Legality. Lovely is a strange word there, but I've already said it. We're going with it.
I'm a lovely man.
He's owning it.
Mr. Rick Ho, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. Yes, as always, I'm bringing the legal, lawyerly look to the podcast, just as Travis is bringing that slum look from San Francisco.
It would be funny if you logged into the show and never knew anything about us, and you said one's a lawyer. You would think it's Travis, 100%. And last but certainly not least, the man, the myth, the seven, Mr. Rodriguez. Good morning, sir.
That's right, baby. Let's do this. I'm ready. No Fast and Furious.
No.
I mean, all right, we're good.
Yeah, no, we're good.
I still think Tokyo Drift was number 2.
Kingdom Hearts crossed Fast and Furious. Right?
Okay, first of all, not only is Tokyo Drift not number 2, it takes place chronologically between 6 and 7.
Hey, you've done it. You've done it.
All fans of Fast and Furious know that is true.
So Tokyo Drift is really Fast and Furious 6.8, 365 over 2.
Correct. It's very bizarre. Justin Lin is a genius. Let's move on.
Just like Kingdom Hearts, which we're going to talk about, you were just saying they were genius with that series too. With the
no, I was not. And how dare you, sir? How dare you?
Oh, the old pre-show red herring. Remember, Travis, when you were talking up the plot of Kingdom Hearts?
Nope.
All right. Well, chat. Good to see everyone this morning. And we've got, I am not going to miss any super chats today. I promise. We've got Luke coming out of the gate.
Man, that was fast.
Yeah.
Before we even started. All right, Luke, with the Xbox expansion pass, $2 super chat. All Star Wars is good Star Wars, Hogue. Just so you know.
If you allow a mega corporation to label things that are mandated for you to think are good, you've already lost, friend.
That's not the response he was expecting, but I like it. Yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot today. So we've got Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, which will probably lead to some other Star Wars banter, as it usually does on the show. We've got.
Trying to avoid it. I have like a note written here that says like, "Don't fight with Travis on this today."
Just like a permanent sticky
note. Save it for another show. I think
it's right off camera. Don't argue with Travis about Star Wars.
Per usual, Hogue and I agree on 98% of things, and then spend all of our time arguing about the 2% we disagree on. So I'm also going to try to not fight with him about Star Wars today. It is the game is fantastic. So
yeah, and we'll touch on that. We've got we're going to be talking main topic about Halo Infinite Season 2 and kind of touching back on some of the live service stuff we talked about previously. We obviously have Halo TV series episode 3, which Hogue loved. I'm just going to spoil that for you.
I should have like a series of notes that don't let these gentlemen get my ire up on like 4 different topics today.
We've got a new Tomb Raider. We've got Max Payne returning, and we've got some Activision-Blizzard stuff I want to touch on with some interesting contractual stuff. But first, guys, I am going to go ahead and say this because I've been thinking about it and I feel like saying it. So we're going to start with just throwing something at you to get your opinions on. And that is my thought that's been running through my head is that I think that achievements and trophy hunting is ruining games for some people. And I'll tell you where I come up with this is that I've been, obviously you guys know Elden Ring took over my life for an extended period of time. I still talk to people daily who are playing it and asking me questions and hints and everything. And I've talked to a lot of people now that more people, it's been out for 6 weeks, people have finished the game. I've seen quite a few people who keep posting I've 100% in Elden Ring because they got all the achievements or got the platinum. And then they show, 1,000 and 1,000 platinum, and they put like 62 hours into it. And I'm like, or 65 or 70, what have you. And I'm thinking to myself, you've missed probably more than half of that game. But your definition of completing a game is that you have all the achievements or the trophies, which those two things are not equal. The other thing that really kind of not bugs me, and I want to be exceedingly clear, I'm going to pull a Hogue here, exceedingly clear that if you love achievements and trophies and that's fun to you, by all means, enjoy it. I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Is that a Hogue disclaimer?
By all means, there's nothing wrong with that. I hope that you get as many as you want and you love it to death. But I think if you know Elden Ring enough to get all the achievements, right, you have to do certain things in that game, which is get all the legendary weapons, which are tied to specific quest lines. And there are a ton of specific things you have to do that, being honest, nobody is doing that in 60 hours unless you're literally using a step-by-step guide. And the sense of one of the most beautiful things of Elden Ring is the sense of discovery and mystery and the things you kind of uncover in that world. And it's crazy to me that a game like this that comes around once in many years, that took several years to develop, that we won't see again for probably a pretty long time, that someone would literally sit down with a step-by-step guide to go through the whole thing with no sense of discovery or surprise or exploration, just to say that they have this imaginary platinum trophy. It's very weird to me, and I feel that that's doing a disservice almost to yourself in enjoying a game in a sense that can be enjoyed much more thoroughly in a different way. Just an opinion, obviously, but I want to see what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, can I be devil's advocate on this? Because that, to me, in a different light, and I know you love Elden Ring, and I like Elden Ring.
And Elden Ring's just an example, right? I think this is across many games, but
like in a different light, that sounds a little bit like you're playing it wrong. Like that the critique sounds like you telling somebody that they are playing it wrong because they're not playing it in the way that would maximize your enjoyment of the game. Sure. But there are achievement hunters. There are people that just get utility from the ding, and there's also people that maybe don't jive with Elden Ring as much as you or other games, and like to do that and go and say that and get it done off their shelf. And it's not me and it's not you, but I think that there can be value in that. And when I look at these kinds of issues, and we've talked about this before, about like when is a game finished and what does achievements mean and what does achievement hunting mean. I look at it and say, yeah, I played Elden Ring for 35 hours and I haven't gone back, and I probably won't go back for some time. I'm just done with that for right now. Right. But if I wanted to engage back with it, I find some of it's designed to be too obtuse. So, powering through that with somebody's help like your guides, Ains, might be a more enjoyable experience to me that does end up in 70 hours instead of 140 because I don't like wandering in the wilderness as much. Sure. Or I don't like trying to figure out what their design goals were because it's not doing it for me as much as it was for other people. So I reject the hypothesis achievements are ruining games because I think it's just a marker. And if you don't care about it, you can go and enjoy the games perfectly fine anyway.
Of course.
So I reject that hypothesis, but do acknowledge that I think it has driven people to game in a different way than it did, 20 years ago. And I think that's actually part of the design as well, right? Filling bars and doing various things in games and asking, oh, what's the costume that I get? Where's the meta reward that I get is different from, the original days of gaming of like the game was fun. Actually playing was fun. There's a lot more outside stuff that because so many games feature it, whether it's achievements or costumes or V-Bucks or whatever it might be, when that's lacking, you do feel it now in that design. You're like, why am I spending the time doing this? Especially if you're not fully enjoying it right that second. Right. So I don't think it's ruining things. I do think it changes some metrics. And I do think there are people that play that maybe aren't on this podcast at all that really just do like collecting those numbers for whatever reason they do.
Of course. Oh, no, I fully acknowledge that. And like I said, if you like to, I'm not or trying to undermine that. I'm just, it was a perspective thought. That's all. And I think that I already said my piece, so I don't want to spend too much time on this anyway. But Travis, Dan, what do you guys think?
Man, I don't really have a huge opinion on trophies and if they ruin games. All I know is that, it's a cool feature. That's basically it. For me, depending on the game, I have no problem using guides. I have no shame. Usually it comes down to where I'm like, all right, this is really frustrating. What am I supposed to do? And like Coke said, it's kind of subjective as how you find your value in the game. With something like, Elden Ring, I haven't played it, so I couldn't tell you, but it sounds like from everything I've heard, there's tons of stuff to do, tons of stuff to find. Are you doing yourself a disservice just trying to rush through and get the trophies? It depends on what you want. You don't go to, Red Lobster for a good steak. You kind of, you get what you want out of it, man. You get the scampi and the cheddar
I would
bay
just
biscuits.
like to point out, in a first for the podcast, apparently my father is watching this one.
Right.
He actually tweeted at me or texted me, essentially, you're wrong. Achievements are ruining games. So, Ains, you have Mr. Hogue.
Honestly, it's kind of impressive that your dad has an opinion on this topic. Was he just being contrary, or is this actually an opinion?
Oh no, he's got more. I mean, I don't want to let Dad take over, but hello.
Can we have his dad on the show, please?
I'll be gone next week. Bring him on.
Senior Hogue.
Who will experience the joy of discovery now? That was always the best part for me.
Preach it, Senior Hogue.
I don't even know if I want to have a follow-up opinion. I'm so impressed. My dad would punch me in the face and say that I was a loser for playing games and not know at all what achievements are. So your dad sounds dope. What the heck?
I don't know if we talked about my origins on all this, but my dad was the one that brought me into gaming back in the day. He had the Atari 2600. He had the Commodore 64. He had the Intellivision. And then that went all through CDI, 3DO, TurboGrafx. So he loved that stuff, and then that was passed to me. And now I mostly tell him about things that come out. But he's got opinions on discovery and achievement. So there you go.
There you go. Wow. CDI. Wow, that's a system I haven't heard of in a very long time.
My dad only has opinions on bench pressing and violence. So it's my.
What do you think of Tokyo Drift?
Actually, he hates Fast and Furious. This is real. He has no joy in his life. This poor man.
We're back to the
anyway, that's Mr. North, or as I call him, Sir. Anyway, achievements. I also kind of have a problem with, I guess, achievements, but it's really not achievements. It's more the guides, the way that people interact with guides, which I think is what we're talking about here. It's at least related, right? Which, Dan Stapleton is a guy who I had a conversation with this a couple weeks ago where he tweeted, how do people play a game like Elden Ring and not use a guide? And what he was referring to was a mission where it's the one where you have to find Blade the wolf, which if anybody knows that, it's like you kind of have to figure it out by talking.
Dude, I found him on my own.
Me too. Yeah. I also found him on my own. But to be fair, I found him on my own 60 hours into the game. I was sort of it took me way longer. And Dan just looked it up and sort of found him at the time you're supposed to.
It was my second playthrough, to be fair.
Yeah. So I found it on my first
here
playthrough.
With 35 hours in saying question mark. I don't know.
Correct. Exactly. His sort of argument was all right, so I had to use this emote at a certain place and a certain time and stuff like that to solve the quest. It's kind of obtuse. And I told him, look, I play games completely blind. For me, it's part of the experience. And I think we just had a difference of opinion. And
sure.
And the way that I think of it is it's people who like to build the Lego set according to the instruction versus just like to build whatever they want with Legos. And that is another kind of medium that has a hard divide on what people see as fun. Some people like to follow the instructions. Some people like to just look at a guide and go down the list and then complete their checklist. And I do think there's a certain amount of satisfaction out of that. It's just not the way I get my kicks in games personally. Mm-hmm. I like to just dump all the Lego bricks onto the table and make something my own. And that to me, the discovery is part of the games. And so I do think that there's people who wouldn't be gamers right now if there weren't for achievements. And so if it's bringing people in and giving people an opportunity to kind of to get into the space and find the thing that they think is fun, I don't think that's wrong. And so for me, it's like, I would never want to do it. When people use guides, I sort of raise an eyebrow, or if they're just running through the achievements, I'm kind of like, what, really? You find that fun?
He
but
judges
again,
you and thinks you lesser.
I certainly judge you, but I also judge people who just build the Lego sets according to the instructions and then glue it together. And I think, like, to me, that's not the way that you do Legos. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what Legos are about for me. But I don't think you can say it's ruining games. It has brought a lot of people into the medium and gotten people to play games that they wouldn't normally play. And I think that's good. They found something that is fun for them.
What's funny is I think that it's both, right? Like, I'm an explorer type, like that's what I like, but I do think there's a line that you can cross. I'm not saying Elden Ring crosses this, because I didn't give it that 100 hours of time, where it does become too obtuse, right? And usually what I think of as the example is, Castlevania 2, where you have to kneel for 7 seconds by a rock that doesn't look like anything to get picked up by a tornado, to advance the story. Like, there's some level of, we want you to buy the strategy guide, or in now the internet land, we want you to check things out. We want you to interact with a social environment. We want that to be a part of your gameplay. We want you to be reading notes and things, which I don't like to do anyway. I so dislike guides. I don't read notes in these games, because I don't want to know anything about what anybody's saying, which is of course part of the design. So I'm doing it wrong in some functional way. But I think that there can be places where it can get just too weird. Like, I don't know what the clues are leading up to an emote in a forest at a specific time or whatever. But you can tell me whether it makes sense without a guide. But
yeah, I mean, it's something you have to discover, but it isn't the most like clear, and probably a lot of people will miss it. I think what Ains and I would say to that as a response is, it's okay if you miss it. Like, missing things is also sort of part of the adventure. You don't have to get it right the first try. And I think some people have a desire to get everything done and see it all on the checklist their first run, and that does take away some of the discovery.
Well, some of that's time. I mean, like, to me, it's okay. I want to get the content these people put in here that I paid for, and I have this amount of time to get it done. I don't have 2 runs of Elden Ring in me. I don't have 180 hours before I want to move on to the next thing, or I have to move on to the next thing. And so different people just come at these things in different ways. And to me, it's so easy to ignore achievements or trophies or whatever, that mostly what I'm interacting with on those, I think they pop up. And I'm always interested from a sociological perspective about, like, on the Xbox, which ones have the diamonds? Like what are people really not doing in this game? Then I feel bad for, like, some indie that I'm playing that, like, the first achievement for, like, passing the first level has a diamond. I'm like, oh, that's not working out on Game Pass. And so I like that kind of aspect of it. But mostly, if it's a game I enjoy, I'm ignoring it. And then I get to the end and I see how close I am to, like, what else do you got going? Is this achievement ridiculous? What, should I finish this? And most of them are stupid ridiculous. Like, I don't want to engage with your game for that level. But
Elden Ring is actually one of those games you have to play, like, New Game Plus. It's like I played 150 hour playthrough, did like everything, killed all 200 and whatever bosses, and I don't have them all. And then my brother was like, "Hey, I just did my New Game Plus," and he sort of was like the guy who follows the instruction booklet,
Yeah.
So,
dear Lord, man. I mean, somebody just beat Elden Ring in like less than 13 minutes.
I saw that, but they also they're despawning the map and stuff.
That's the point, though. I mean, everybody's trying to do something. They get everything, but it gets something different out of them. Achievements are what you get, or trophies. That's fine. If you want to,
I said I reject the hypothesis.
Yeah. I think I play just to waste time, basically, at this point in my life. And just kind of take my mind off everything else. And that's what video games are, just kind of the escape for me. When you get down to the end, I think Dash said it, you kind of just do everything, and then you kind of clean up maybe with a guide if you want to, if you really need those, or not. Like, I have one achievement left or trophy left in Horizon Forbidden West, and I refuse to get it because I hate the stupid mini game.
I was going to say, it's going to be the Machine Strike.
Yeah, it's Machine Strike. And I was like, I'm not playing this. You're not doing this to me, buddy. I'm not going to fall for your ruse.
Machine Strike is great. Don't listen to Dan on this.
Hey, there's more than one way to play a game and enjoy it.
Indeed.
And, I like to think that most people don't use guides or anything like that unless they get stuck. I think probably the average gamer is not somebody who, like, looks at the guide their entire playthrough and just only does that stuff. They probably they Google something when they run into a wall and they use it to help them get over it.
Yeah.
I think, that's totally valid. Like, some people don't like the experience of just like being stuck somewhere for a long period of time or not figuring something out. And I get that. Like, I would never judge somebody for using it, but I do, I raise my eyebrow at people who are just looking at the guide and going down the checklist because I'm just like, I mean,
I would
but I'm like,
again, I would say like, I've played enough games that I should be able to crack something pretty quick. Or at least at a reasonable time frame. And then it's like a timer runs, right? If we get up to like 2 hours or something, I'm like, okay, so I'm blaming you, Mr. Designer. What in the heck is this? And then I'll wield it back if like they say, oh, I'm dumb. Okay. Or it's like, nope, that was unfair, Chief.
Yeah. Sometimes it is unfair. Yeah. Or there's a bug. I hate that, especially when you're reviewing games and you have no idea if it's like intended or it's like something is going
that's the
right.
worst.
You have to ask the developer like, yo, what like is this supposed to be happening? And then sometimes they'll just tell you like, yeah, you're dumb, here's how you solve it. And other times they'll be like, oh no, that's not supposed to be it. But yeah,
well, that's my wife's joke for me is because she sat around me playing games enough that when I get stuck, it's it could be a bug. It's probably a bug. It's like, well, every single
your
time
wife is in your corner. That's beautiful. Yeah. She doesn't trust the game more than she trusts you and your gaming skills.
Well, she likes to make fun of me saying that. Yeah.
Well, a lot of good commentary there. I think people obviously have a lot of opinions. It was running through my head because I obviously have friends who are trophy hunters and achievement hunters, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It was just something I was thinking about. So we can move on.
That on at some point. I have 25 texts from him. it's a running commentary. So back in the beginning, you had to write the author to get unstuck, which was fun.
It's very true.
Author, by the way, that's the term he used for like infographics games,
We've got a few super chats to get to, and we do have. If you remember last week, we closed. Gecko gave us a super chat right at the end that we said we would talk about this week. So let's go through these few super chats we've got, and then we'll answer Gecko's question from last week as well.
I thought about my answer, by the way. If you need me to go first,
okay, cool.
We've slept since then. All right, Cal with the $5 super chat. Thank you, man. Me and my brother were kind of speaking about this with Tunic. There is no way you 100% that game with no help. The obscurity from the devs is bananas.
Yeah, I've heard the same. I've only played
Tunic. It's the school of design, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've only played it briefly, so but I've heard there's tons of hidden stuff that you're not finding.
You say that, but someone had to find that stuff organically. Someone made the guides, and his name was Brandon. He works at IGN, and the dude is a legend. Dude, I have no idea how this guy exists as a human, but he'll be like the guy who just like discovers all the secrets and chronicles them before the game's even out. And you're like, dude, how are you a person? And he's just like 101010110.
He's the game like me.
He's crazy, dude. He's crazy. If you have a conversation with him ever, it'll open your mind. But I agree, like probably 99% of people aren't going to find it, but someone has to do it, and I think that's a fun part of
that's cool
experience. Somebody
very cool. Tal, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate that. By the way, Doug, 1229 here in Korea, and I just got to say, I don't know if you're cursing at us, Doug. It looks like you're yelling at us, but hopefully it just says good morning or hello or good night. I'm not sure. But
my Korean's a little rough, but I believe he's saying that we're all very attractive.
That makes sense.
I appreciate it, Doug. That's awesome, man. Chris, $5 super chat.
Yeah, $5 super chat from Chris. Thank you, man. Elden Ring, I love this game. Thanks for helping Ains. The community is great.
Yeah.
That lack of comma and thanks for helping Ains makes me wonder, are we did somebody help you, Ains?
We're always helping Ains.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Chris.
We can do it. And Fat Boy Horror with the 5 pounds.
5
I'll
pounds.
Get them mixed up.
You say 5
Papa
quid.
Hogue with the Intellivision for the win. Nice.
Yeah, Papa Hogue in the house.
Is your dad also a lawyer or not?
Yes.
A family? He is. Oh my God! Please, we must have him on,
dude. We gotta have both Hogues on, and me and Travis will act like Ace Attorney, and we'll just let you two battle it out, and me and Travis will just make funny faces and I can't speak. Comments, crazy comments.
That'd be great.
We'll see.
Rick sounds thrilled about
that. Was
that.
A hard no, I think.
No, I love my dad. I don't know whether he would be up for something like this, but I will. I'll talk to him about it later today.
Too funny. Appreciate the super chats, guys. And then Gecko's comment from last week. Obviously, I can't pull it up because it's not in our current chat. But his comment was, What is, and this is for the chat as well. We can kind of share this one, and I'll pull up some answers. So go ahead and answer in the chat. I'll take a look. What is the worst game that you actually enjoy playing? So you thought about it, Travis. Go for it. You said Destiny last week.
I did say Destiny last week, and I still kind of stand by that. Like, if you're going by the goodness of the game versus the amount of time I've spent playing it, the Destiny time is way oversized, because Destiny at times has been like a 5 or a 6, and I've still put time into it. I actually had a friend over yesterday who he actually had never met him before. He was like a friend of a friend, but he was like talking about his Stockholm syndrome with Destiny. And we were like, why do we play this game? It's crazy. We ended up talking about it for a really long time, but I can't in good faith stand by Destiny, because it is a pretty competent game at times, especially right now. So I'm going to have to go with Earth Defense Force. That is a game that, like, legitimately, it's just bad. Like, by any metric or measure it, it's got a frame rate that goes to like 11 frames per second. Its story and writing and voice acting is just like bottom of the barrel, just terrible stuff. And yet it is so fun. The first one I think was Earth Defense Force 2017 with Xbox 360 game, and like I ended up playing that game for like dozens of hours, because if you play it with your friend, it's like watching a really like campy, cheesy movie that you're just like cracking up at the whole time. And that game, it barely runs. Really stupid game, completely poorly balanced. But damn, man, you got a friend in it, and you guys just kind of like watch the frame rate rock itself to 3 frames per second when somebody fires like a missile off or whatever. And there's just nothing like it. So I think I reviewed like Earth Defense Force like 2042, which was like one of the sequels, and I ended up giving it like an 8 or something, even though it was like, I say in the review, like, dude, this game has so many problems, and yet when I look at it as a whole, it's just fun, which, like, isn't that the point of games? Like, even despite all of the problems it has, it's just a fun game, even when it's like not working on you half the time. And so some games can be bad in a fun way. It's kind of a personal preference thing, obviously. Sure. But Earth Defense Force for me is like one of the all-time greats. Like, you get a friend over and play one of those games, and you guys will be like roaring with laughter, even as you're just kind of shaking your head and going like, what is this? Like, how did somebody make this and think it was going to be a good product? So that's my answer. Earth Defense Force. Goated.
Nice.
Well, as it turns out, I think I can answer mine pretty easily. Ains, I've actually shared a screen with you if you want to post it. I don't know if that's going to throw off all of our good stuff. So we don't share stuff
over our faces. He's done that before.
Put it right over. But so as it turns out, I'm a big fan of early 90s full motion video games.
Amazing.
This was a point in time when video game developers and publishers were experimenting with the video form. And I love them all, basically. Your Sewer Sharks, your Mad Dog, McCree's. But what I settled on for the worst one that I actually love is an adventure game here. And I think this is the PC box. I think I played it on 3DO primarily, called The Daedalus Encounter, starring, of course,
Carrera?
That's Tia Carrera, absolutely. Starring, of course, superstar Tia Carrera. This was about the screen that you got to play on. And essentially, you were investigating an alien spacecraft. And it is cheesy. It is terrible by all rights. But certainly, as a teenager playing these games and exploring things, it was decent science fiction, and it was something new in video games. So I love all these games. I love Seventh Guest. I love Double Switch, Night Trap. There was a game on the TurboGrafx CD called It Came from the Desert, where you fought giant ants that were attacking a city, much like Travis's pick, actually. Nice. And so Daedalus Encounter, check it out. One of my favorites, certainly acknowledged by me as objectively terrible on a kind of fundamental level. Also, one of my favorite games ever. So Daedalus Encounter, check it out. I don't even think you can check it out, but that's my pick. And then I'll kill my share here. But
yeah, that's awesome. I
couldn't properly convey it without some pictures.
No, that's really cool. And I got to be honest with you, I don't think we've ever used the screen share feature on our stream here. We've never done.
It's kind of cool.
It
is. I like to do it in stream. If it's allowed, I will do it more often.
Of course, yeah.
You know me, virtual reality. I love my slides. So
That's funny though. I hadn't thought about full motion picture or full motion video games in a while. I did buy that Night Trap remake they did for
Night
PS4.
Trap.
Yeah, I still have that.
Night Trap is the funniest name for a video game. It sounds like
I could sing the song, man. I know
somebody
Night
put
Trap.
like 4 seconds of thought into it. They're like, "What if?
No doubt.
What do we call it? Well, it's a trap. It's at night.
Night Trap. That's it.
Well, Double Switch is the better version of Night Trap, but it's a little bit more complicated. So check that one out too. That one's also got a whatever anniversary it was edition on your modern consoles. So it stars.
Wait, really?
Yeah. I'll play Double Switch with you. I should stream this stuff. It's no, I have every FMV game that they remake. I don't much care for the very slow choose your own adventure kind of full motion video games that they make right now.
Yeah.
But these games had at least a modicum of gameplay because you had to switch between cameras and trap various things. Double Switch had the advantage of having multiple traps per room, and you had to know exactly where they were going to stand and then not trap the good guys and all sorts of stuff. But that starred Corey Haim and had like a decent, terrible plot. And yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that there's the one that I can't remember the name of in aliens attack a town in Texas. And that's fully full motion video. And like all of the tutorials had like this army guy with a Genesis controller explaining the buttons to you. And then when you lose, he cracks it in half. Yeah, great stuff. I could go on and on and on about this. And I didn't even include like adventure games of that era that were doing light full motion video stuff. So you have like a cyberpunk adventure with Dennis Hopper and all these things. So yeah, we'll have an episode. I could just talk about full motion video games from the 90s.
It was,
but yes,
it'll be the episode that your dad is on for sure. We'll tell him to bring his lawyer slides as well.
It was where we discovered we could do full motion video, and then everyone was trying to incorporate it into games because it was the cool thing.
Well, there's some strong successes. I still say Wing Commander 4 is a strong success of that form and adding to a video game. That's like my favorite use of it, but I don't think it's terrible, so I didn't want to use that as my answer.
Command and
Conquer. Yeah. We got a bunch of comments in the chat. We got Outriders. We've got Pontus is in the chat. He said Nerf Legends or Crossfire X.
Nope, those are not games I enjoyed, nor should anybody even try to enjoy them.
Sark says Destiny. He said Halo Infinite would be a close second. Fair. Kung Fu Chaos. Doug, going back to the original Xbox, one of my favorite games on the original Xbox, Kung Fu Chaos. A couple people said Spec Ops: The Line. It's a good one. Final Fantasy
game, though? Really? I think that's
a bad game with a good story. Spec Ops: The Line is a bad game.
That's exactly what they said. Yeah. So, and someone said all the Sierra Quest games. Good shout out, Doug. The Quest games were.
Did you just wait? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, Doug. Did you just imply that the Sierra Quest games are horrible? Because we have a problem now, Doug.
Yeah. They're good games. Dan, you got one for this?
Yes. I go back. I mean, I could go really recent to say, hey, how about Cyberpunk? But I won't, because I really, really enjoyed that game, regardless of how it launched. It's I know it just makes hands mad. But you remember the 50 Cent game? It was like
Blood on the Sand.
Yes, dude.
Yeah. That's
so
much fun, and I had such a good time with it. But I mean, it really wasn't that great. I mean, when now you go back and look at it, I'm just like, God, I can't believe I did that.
You know how much that game goes for? Now look it up. If you try to get a copy of that game, it's like $200.
Really?
I saw that. I think I own a copy.
Maybe I'd take my answer back then. I guess this is
people
crazy.
like it because it got like didn't it get like FPS boost or it got something on Xbox recently which made it more playable, but they stopped making it years ago.
Digital.
Yeah, you can't get it. So that's funny, man. Funny enough, mine's gonna be kind of a funny one given the history of this show, but it's the only one that came to mind because I got to be honest with you guys. I play so many games, and I don't really play bad games. Like if a game's bad, there's so many good games. Like I don't spend time playing bad games.
There's like a limited amount of time in the world. And then when you see like a portion of something, you say you got to kick it to the curb when it's not working for you. Isn't that that's right?
Yeah. It's like Fast and Furious. You watch it, you're like, this isn't good, and you just kind of get rid of it.
But I hear you.
But I think my answer is seriously going to be Anthem, because Anthem objectively wasn't a very good game, especially at launch. The quest lines were crap. There was a lot of filler quests. The story didn't make any sense. There was a lot of bugs. I actually had one bug where I could never finish a quest. The character would just disappear when you try to talk to him endlessly. It was a mess, and yet I enjoyed the hell out of that game. The gameplay in that game was just so fun that we've joked about it endlessly on this show, but it just disappoints me every time I think about it that they didn't do that game justice.
Did you review it?
I did.
Dan did.
What'd you give it? Yeah,
I think it was a 7. And then I re-reviewed it later on when they came back and like fixed a bunch of stuff. And I don't know if I
don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. It's been a long time. But like everything, I'm 100% in agreement there. It was everything I wanted it to be and nothing I wanted it to be. It was like one of those games where it's just like, what happened? Like the end game content was non-existent. There was, the weapons were all the same, and then they came out, and they're like, oh, we're gonna fix this, and then 6 months later they kind of did some stuff, and then it just died. You heard about some expansions that was supposed to, some pirates and some other crap, and that never came about. It's really kind of sad. I still love that game. I still have freaking money in Anthem currency sitting in that game. I gotta use it before.
Wait, really? Oh my god!
Yeah. I got like
you
didn't even know that game had in-game currency. That's terrible.
It did. I bought $50 worth of it because I loved it so much.
They were ready to be a live service, Travis, except they completely weren't.
Yeah,
correct.
That's every live service game when it launches. Yeah,
which we're gonna touch on more shortly here. Yeah, you gave it a 7. You said there's a lot of qualifications, and then you revisited it 6 months later, and you basically said I cannot recommend it.
That's about right.
Just for the record, since I do have my contact here texting me, that name of that Texas game was Ground Zero Texas on the Genesis CD, Sega CD.
Wow.
So
Ground Zero Texas is also my name for Texas. Yeah, just as a state.
God.
San Franciscans, am I right, people?
Oh man! All right. So finally, we can move on now. Currently playing, guys. So why don't we?
You always have these musings and little things. You say, "We'll talk about this for 2 minutes." It's 11:45.
I know. Well, didn't you remember?
It's a light news week, so
yeah, it is a light news week. Before we went live, I said I'm not going to bring this up because I feel like it's going to go for a while. And look what happened.
You didn't tell us what you weren't bringing up. I thought this was the other thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What are we playing? So I have an important question for what are we playing?
Okay.
Can a Lego game be game of the year?
For sure.
Yes, but not in a year where Elden Ring released.
Well,
was released.
We already talked about my feelings on Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring's great, Ains. I'm glad you love it. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga.
Well, wait. You asked, can it be game of the year? You didn't ask, can it be my game of the year?
No, just generally.
Yeah, I think
yes.
critically speaking,
Lego
games
not going to win. I usually put in a bucket that says, yeah, this is nice. And Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is the future of Lego games, in my opinion. It is a massive, massive upgrade to what they have otherwise put out there. Now, I don't know if they can keep it up, especially off all the stories of how long it took and everything else that they poured into this game. But Lego Skywalker Saga has been addictive, fun, great to play alone, great to play with my kids, sends up the Star Wars movies fantastically. And then on top of that, they have like 38 of these, what I'm going to call Lego Dimensions worlds. I know Lego Dimensions was only out for like a couple years, but they take these areas in Star Wars and you can run around for hours and hours and hours in any one of them, doing cool little environmental puzzles, solving things. My littlest loves to be BB-8 and roll around, and we do these things together and get kyber bricks and roll through. It is fantastic. Like, they've solved it. Like, I've never really engaged with a Lego game to that level. I get, it's a little boring after a little while. And it's not more complex, really. I mean, we've got classes. We can talk about things on a video game reviewer basis. But if you like Star Wars, heck, if you like any portion of Star Wars, 2/3 of it, say, you're going to be happy with this product. It is fantastic. It's going to be on my game of the year list. I don't know how high it's going to get. But it's just such a good experience with a video game that I couldn't be happier with it for basically anybody. I do think you have to have a love of Star Wars. I think that tilt gives you a strong push towards loving it. But it's I had to explain to somebody I was talking to yesterday who was just ignoring it, saying, we've done the Lego games. I was like, they needed to make it more obvious that this was like an evolution. Like this isn't Lego games as they have been. And I don't know that they accomplished that, especially since this is whatever Lego Star Wars 5 in terms of releases, I think. So they maybe could have done a better job of that. But for those of us that have followed it at all, this is not the Lego Star Wars that This is not the remakes of the originals. This is brand new stuff, and it's fantastic. I love it to death.
I'm gonna violently agree with Hogue on this, without the caveats of only 2/3 of it being good. I think, if you're a Star Wars fan, it does so much to kind of like hug you with it, and just a lot of like jokes. And I think Lego just works best when it has a reference point, a touchstone that everyone kind of relates to, because you feel like you're a part of this inside joke. And the more you know about Star Wars, the more Lego kind of like plays into the like little bits and like
they have a lot of meta jokes.
A lot of meta jokes. They have a reference to what was it I saw the other day that it's God, I can't remember it, but it's like some deep pulls from like Star Wars, like stuff that's only tangentially related to the Star Wars universe, and some really, really surprising kind of like material in a kid's game. But if you are kind of like if you're holding off on it because you think it's a kid's game and it's just sort of going to be like, the games you played before, like don't do that. Buy this game. It's so good. It is like, it blows my mind. Like Hogue has sort of already said all the things I wanted to talk about, but it's just a love letter to Star Wars, all of Star Wars, which I actually think is super important and a healing moment for some Star Wars fans who maybe now will have a slightly more positive opinion of the franchise as a whole.
Yes, I think Lego wrote them better.
Okay. Terrible. But I think that is if you should play it if you have any love of either Star Wars or these Lego games. It's amazing.
I
haven't played it. Yeah. Nope. I feel like this is gonna be. Yeah, I love Star Wars.
I was gonna say you're a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I hate Legos. Like I hate every Lego game that's ever come out.
Like the concept, because it's a different game. It really is.
It
really
may be,
is, yeah.
But I also feel like it'll be $5 in like a month and a half. So I'll wait on that one, somewhere, because Lego games typically just drop in price. Like
I'll let you borrow my disc, Dan.
Nope, can't do it. I literally had to clean out the dust in my disc on my series. The other day. I was like, man, this is never gonna get used.
I picked it up. I meant to bring over, if you guys didn't see the Steel book that you could get if you pre-order from Best Buy, like more than 6 months ago. Like no joke, I pre-ordered this game in June of 2020.
Is that like the Carbonite one?
Yeah, the Lego Han in Carbonite. It's really cool. It's sitting over there by my TV. But it's it's a lot of fun. I haven't put as much time into it as you guys because I've been addicted to Tiny Tina, which I'll talk about. But I do have a few hours in it. I started, we joked in our DMs, like, where did you start? And I know both of you guys started at
release order.
A release order. Yeah.
Well, I used the very normal order of 41789.
That's really weird.
So I actually said, okay, I'm a Star Wars fan, but not like you guys. I just like Star Wars. And I was like, you know what? I'll just play through this. This is going to be my casual game for like a year. You know what I mean? Like when I've got nothing else to do, I'll just play this for some fun. So I was like, I'm going to go in order. So I started on Phantom Menace. And I was reminded pretty quickly about Jar Jar Binks and some of the horrific stuff there that drives me, that annoys me. But yeah. I am really enjoying the game, as you guys said. Even early on, there's just so many cool little references and jokes and humor. I have some of the controls are a little finicky to me, but that's a nitpick. It looks beautiful too on next gen. Like you don't expect a Lego game to look this cool.
You also don't expect a Lego game to have like pretty decent third-person shooting mechanics with like a cover system. It's super weird. Yeah.
So funny enough, I went back. We sat through, me and Bert, funny enough, sat through the producer demonstration with the producer of the game at E3 in 2019. And we did a video afterwards. And I went back and found it this week and watched it. We filmed that in June of 2019. And I listened to it. And one of the things we talk about in the video was kind of what you and Hogue were saying, is that, and we talked about last week, which is a new engine. It's like an engine that's built to be more open world, and that the shooting mechanics were designed to be much more freeform, not like the old Lego games where it's just an auto shoot here, shoot there. It's more like an actual game now. And I think that adds a lot to it, especially for someone like me who I don't have that diehard love of Star Wars drawing me in, even though I like it, like I said. But because it's more of a good game, I'm really enjoying it. So it's definitely good.
It's significantly more of a game. I feel like you had to ignore that a little bit because they were really made for kids in the other Lego games, because they've always been creative with their humor, and they've done a good job at that. They've always been creative with some of the stuff you could engage with in a level, and then you put that in something that I think all four of us can recognize as more of a game, more of what we expect in a modern level. And it's just, it all comes together so well. And then one of the things I joke about, or I've joked about talking with others on, is like, I really like the economy of how they've set this up, because they have 400 characters to put in front of you, and they have all these ships and all these missions and things that there's reasons to try to get the studs, and then there's essentially investments you can make to increase your stud rate, and like holding out for. I love. It's got a push and pull, and if you love Star Wars, almost all of them are super cool. Somebody's in chat asking, is Babu Frick in there? Yes, very tiny Lego person, and they do that. They have these missions to open up the possibility of buying characters outside of the storyline. So when I say there's like worlds, there's environmental puzzles. There's also little missions that you can do for these things. And like I could just tell you, one of them was I wanted to fly around in the Death Star. That sounded like fun to me. And that's a mission that you get to actually go find the Death Star plans. That takes you to another planet. You fight a boss. They all have dialogue. You bring it back, and then you have the right to buy the Death Star. And like that's throughout. I think there's 1,200 bricks alone. There's 250 missions. Like, it's enormous. I played it every day, and I think I'm at 22% or something like that. And it's just really, really well done. And yeah, I love their new engine. It's one of those that I noted because I would love to see more game developers do this. It is aggressively changing resolution depending on what is happening, in a way that I would think works perfectly. Like they manage their frame rate in all but a couple of places that I have seen, and it'll just change your resolution. It works best with Lego because you're not really caring that much, and when there's little on the screen, it'll come up to full. But it aggressively does that and keeps that smooth feeling throughout. So it feels good. It feels like a well-polished Nintendo game. I'm reminded walking around these things and finding bricks. It's like getting moons in Mario Odyssey, and some of them are that easy. You know, they could play being like, well, you just have to find how to get there to get that brick, get that moon. But others are more complicated. So it takes that design element from Dimensions and from Mario Odyssey, and then has the normal kind of Lego game. Each movie gets 5 missions, and some of them are the more long form, working through a level mission. Some of them are vehicles. Some of them are bosses. Phantom Menace, I actually think, is a terrible place to start, having played it, because it has so many of those are vehicles that you don't get into that zone. But even between those levels, even between the official 5 levels, you're going to do something that's potentially level-like, because they are dedicated to actually walking you through the major beats of the movie. And so if there's more than 5, you'll have a sequence where you walk through the hub world that you'll get better access to when you're free playing, but that you'll do something in that makes sense for the plot to get to the next level. And so there is walking between cutscenes and walking between various pieces of things. It's so smartly made. I just love this game.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. My biggest fear is that I'm not going to have time to complete it because it's so massive. I'm just surprised how much they could fit in. But yeah,
when they have a special print that says, no, you can't pull this lever, and it shows the percentage of the full game above it. And I'm like, okay, all right.
They love to do that. They've done that in a lot of their games too.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said this game is one that I knew was going to be massive, because we got the preview of it and they talked about how big it is, and I was like, well, this will just be my fun game on the side for the foreseeable future. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have other games I'm reviewing or playing hardcore, but then when I have an hour to just sit down and veg out, it's a perfect game for that. Perfect. Yeah, it's so fun.
Well, all I've been doing right now is bouncing to Yavin 4, just collecting things for a little while. That's the only one I've done, and we've done it for hours with me and my girls, and I think there's 38. I mean, I think that it's that size of game. So
Ryan in the chat says, how long to beat? I guess that site says 16 hours to beat it, 33 for completion.
That is a lie.
I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about.
That is a lie. And I'm pretty sure How Long to Beat also has like 30 hours for Elden Ring. It's such a lie.
I think the main is probably if How Long to Beat is just going through all 9 movies, they're probably about 2 hours a piece, give or take. So you're looking at like 18 hours for that, but it's like nothing. You're not going to go through and get everything out of those levels the first time. They've got hidden challenges. They've got a really cool system talking about economy that says essentially we'll show you that there's a mission here, or we'll tell you the name of a challenge. But if you want to know what that is, you owe us 30,000 studs. And like, it's just anything that you want. So like, I found out how to get the Death Star because I said, that's something I would like to focus on. I don't know how to even trigger that mission. So I asked for it. And it's like, well, you need to play through this, and you need to play through this, and then you need to talk to this person, and then you'll be on your way. And it's like, okay, so you do those things, and then you go down the line, and you can do that for anything, which I know I'm going to have to buy because some of the challenges, which are mandatory to finish these levels, are obtuse. It'll say something like starring role. It's like, okay, what do I have to do there? And so my first goal has been to get my stud multipliers up, and get more money flowing in. So it feels like I'm playing like a SimCity or a Civilization game. We got to get that economy rolling better.
That's a good hint for early players then. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, I really enjoy it. So, awesome. We've got some super chats to get to. Let's
sure.
We missed Hassan's right at the end of our. I know what he's referring to here, of course.
Yeah, Aiden's delivering the big T.
He's talking about Anthem, and anytime Hassan's was always in our Anthem conversation because he felt the same way about it. So he threw that up just before we got into the Star Wars talk. So Hassan, thank you very much, sir. Let's see. We got Cerebral Paul in the house.
Yeah, with the $2 super chat. There it is. Dan is wrong. That's not surprising.
What was that even referring to?
He was referring to
about Lego stuff?
About the Lego games. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not wrong.
That's pretty wrong.
Nope.
I think Paul just likes to point out the moment in the show where Dan says something that he disagrees with, which I appreciate the dedication to that, honestly.
It's always inevitable, but yeah, it's just a question of how long.
Sure.
Thank you, Paul. Good to see you, brother. Gecko back in the house.
Gecko again. They really cranked up the Lego humor as well. The intro cutscene of episode 6 had me in stitches.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of these, but I hear from many people like some of the cutscenes are just hilarious.
They have some wonderful stuff in them. And I think what works better is they really start to look a lot like the Lego movies. Now, I mean, they're right up there, real close to kind of full fidelity, so they can get more emotion out. Most of the voice actors are good. They went super weird with baby Anakin, but it's good stuff, and it'll make you laugh, and especially if you recognize stuff. So much of it is meta. I mean, like, they comment on like JJ's direction of Force Awakens. They have Palpatine say, "I wish they would have called you Kira" to Rey, which is like a deep cut from the original treatments of the script. I mean, like, they do that throughout.
I wouldn't even have known that.
Yeah, they do that throughout.
Yeah. Thank you, Gecko, as always, man. Appreciate it. And Don, excuse me, Lionheart.
Yeah, thanks, man. $5 super chat. Thanks for adding legal to your spiel at the end of the podcast. Like I suggested, Ains officially worth a sub to the channel.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Don. Yeah, we'll keep that going forward. Then we'll keep it going. One thing we did forget to mention, which Peter in the chat, HTK, our brothers over at gosh, I'm blanking right now, guys. But he said no online co-op is a serious bummer.
Next level gaming.
I get that. I don't really mind that, to be honest.
I wouldn't use it, but I get it.
Travis.
Yeah. I feel like it would kind of change the vibe.
There's no online co-op?
No. And I don't know.
Is there ever? I mean, I don't honestly know.
Yeah, there never is. Yeah.
No. It's always been second controller next to you, and it says that aggressively at the top.
The interesting part about that is the old Lego games, which is now the first 80 are the old Lego games, and now we're in the new Lego game era. But the old Lego games actually had some of the cooler split screen stuff that would allow you to split off and then combine into the one. They had a cool little engine for that. This one's just straight up you're separate because it's much more open ended in terms of view because they've prioritized no pop in and doing things with the resolution. So it does come down pretty good on 2-player, but you always get your own view.
Yeah, before somebody goes in there and says, Travis, why are you trying to take away options from players? I honestly just think that like that would introduce a lot of problems. I don't think it would feel good to have an online co-op in Lego because there's so much that's dependent on like the host player and kind of like it's just in the DNA of the game. I think it's really like it's a couch co-op or you're gonna have a bad time. That's just how I feel about it. Like I just don't think it would have been fun, the online co-op mode. There's just too much of without going down a deep rabbit hole of like the way that the game is designed. But yeah, I just think I just don't think it would have worked. I'm not really convinced it would have.
Yep. By the way, our brother Beast Mode said several minutes ago when we started this conversation, final hurrah for TT games and Lego. By the way, 2K has the license now.
Yep.
So, in case you didn't know that,
so they're gonna do cool stuff with that engine, though.
I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of investment into it, right? Like you wouldn't do all that investment if it's just going to be for a one-off game. So
we'll might not have known 7 years ago or whenever they started.
That's true too.
Yeah, but I think their engine is probably. I'm actually super excited to see what they do next after this game. So
yeah, it'll be interesting.
The hell of a last hurrah. Also, I have a feeling that Lego will be back. I don't think know what they're getting into with 2K.
Yeah, Lego's not going anywhere. I want to quickly just mention, because I know I talked about it last week, but I binged a lot of all my spare time this week was spent on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and I'm going to say that I don't even think it's a rare opinion anymore because I see more and more people saying it, is that I think Wonderlands is the best Borderlands game.
That's what I said.
You did, and I'm at a point now where I have every single thing I've 100% in the world. So I had every single die. I have every buff, every shrine completed, and I'm in the end game now doing the chaos runs. And it's just like, I think Borderlands 2, you're never going to really, well, maybe you will at one point, but they haven't topped Handsome Jack, right? And I think there's some of the expansions in Borderlands 2 that are just incredible. There's a lot of Borderlands 2 that's incredible. And I think that it's going to be hard to top. But if you look at the game as a game holistically, in terms of just fun to play, humor, and especially the gameplay design as it relates to classes and loot design, Wonderlands is the best that Borderlands has been. And I'm digging the hell out of it, man. And I'm so excited to have more time to just kind of really start on the end game and looking for the chaotic loot and all that, because I'm a loot hunting nut. But it's just like once you got to the end of the story, I finished the story and everything, and it's just really well written. And they did such a good job with Tina in this one. It's just a joy. It's one of those games that just makes you smile. And it's just fun to play. And I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting with the conversations we've had, because I also consider Tiny Tina to be in the delightful category with Lego Star Wars now. It's that kind of just, I am happy playing this game. And so that's nice to get, especially back to back. Tiny Tina got thrown in the bin for a little while as I've been Star Warsing. But I'm definitely going to go back to that one because I was enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I was last week I think I was like a third through it or something. I was really enjoying it, and I think it starts a little slow in my opinion, the first mission or two, but then the once you get to about the middle of it, the levels start to get a lot bigger and expand, and the latter half of it, and the writing with Will Arnett as kind of the big bad and all this stuff, and Tina kind of she's always interrupting your game like we said last week, but it gets bigger and broader towards the end, and it just. The loot gets incredible. The loot design and the build diversity it's excellent. It's just really, really well done. And you can tell that you can see that it's from a team at Gearbox that has been working on Borderlands for 15 plus years now, right? It's been that long or about that. And the whole kind of like end game design and keeping players engaged has been something they've evolved over the course of these games. And you can see that Wonderlands is the culmination of those learnings. And that's just fantastic to see. So love it. If you like Borderlands at all and you've debated getting this game, you're missing out. Absolutely get it. So Dan, I think we asked last week, because I know you've played Borderlands in the past, but you weren't playing this yet.
No, I'm literally only playing MLB right now.
That's right. Yeah,
I did jump into that. I did jump into that, Dan.
Yeah, that's all I've been playing. I got my call up.
Nice.
And, immediately. Yeah. That was exciting. It looked exactly the same as last year when I got called up. Basically just panned around me for did like a 360, view of the stadium.
Yep.
So that's basically. You know what else I was playing? I was playing Far Cry 6 because they added a bunch of new content that I didn't know it was there. So Danny Trejo, some Stranger Things stuff.
Oh yeah,
rainbow thing that was amazing.
Far Cry,
just like one mission. Far Cry 6.
Yeah, there's a Danny Trejo mission.
I saw the DLC. They kind of went wild with it, but I haven't gone back to it. Was it good?
Yeah, it was fun. The Rambo mission was probably my favorite. You meet some guy who's like a huge Rambo fan, and he's got like Stallone bus and like all the official stuff, and I think you finish a mission, you get like a special weapon, which is his bow and arrow with the explosive tip, which is ungodly powerful in that game. It was just fun. It was a good time. It's basically a super fan trying to get all of the stuff. Trejo does he's trying to make tacos for the Yarans,
Far Cry 6 has an eclectic tone.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's quite the sandwich of horrifying torture scenes and goofball plot lines. I like Far Cry 6 a lot, but man, oh man, is that a weird package.
It's out there.
I think they dove into it, right? Like they said, here's our core story, right? Which is more serious, as you mentioned. And then they know like the goofball stuff. They're like, we're just going to go head first into it. Like, why even hold on at this point?
They had no Herc in this one, so it was Hercless Far Cry, and so this is nice. This makes up for it a little bit.
That's cool. And the Stranger Things crossover, wasn't that free? I think it was free.
All of this stuff was free. This is all the stuff they added.
The paid stuff was the ones that Travis was reviewing for us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, you got to review that? But it was semi-decent. You're not allowed to review semi-decent stuff.
I think I gave the last one a 5. I wouldn't call it semi-decent.
Okay. He really hates that Reverend.
Oh my god!
You get to review Wonderland, so that's not too bad.
That's true.
All the comments to Travis's review of you don't get the character.
Yeah,
you're a terrible person.
I don't get the douche character in the yellow aviators. Dude, I don't understand. I honestly thought everyone was sort of on board with the Far Cry 5 villain being like the worst one, right?
No, he's not the worst one.
Really? What was the worst one?
Who would be the worst?
Yeah.
No,
it's not 3.
No, 3.
Pagan Min's not great either, but I don't know.
Yeah, Pagan Min I wasn't big on.
Really?
No,
I like him. I don't like him.
No,
the bottom of the podcast here is an agreement here. I thought he was better than 5.
I mean, I think most people think that 3 is the best. What is Voss?
Correct.
Right? And the father is kind of middling. I think people think he was.
Oh, people love the father. Apparently,
people got very angry at Travis.
Very mad at me for saying his character. Yeah, all I said was that his character was sort of just like a pair of yellow aviators that just says like religious nonsense at you, and they were like, "Oh, you don't get his character. He was so deep and rich." And I'm like, "Really? In Far Cry 5, he was deep and rich?" Because I played that entire game, and I was like, "This guy's kind of nothing."
No, Far Cry 5 lived on the lieutenants. The
lieutenants were way better. Yeah.
He I thought that the guy who played him, I thought did a good job, but the way that he was written in the game wasn't
much unlike Troy Baker as Pagan Min.
Yeah, I think I like Pagan Min the best.
Yeah, because he's so well written though, Ains. Like he's like in your life the entire time you're playing that game. Whereas I felt like you deal with the lieutenant so much in Far Cry 5 that by the time you get to the end of the game, you're like, who is this guy again? Like really, like, I didn't feel a connection with them. And then the absolutely like terrible trying to redeem that character in the what was the game New Dawn.
I didn't
play New Dawn. Oh my god, New Dawn. They make him the good guy after he does all the atrocities. It's crazy, dude.
He was trying to save everybody. He was right, Travis. You see,
that's what they went with.
The ends justify the means.
Murders he did. He was totally on point.
Morality in modern entertainment media sometimes gets a little wonky.
Yeah, dude. That honestly, I thought that was. And then what's crazy is he's like, not only was I right about everybody needing to die and we had to militarize and do all this crazy stuff, but then if you hang out with him, you get superpowers. He like gives you a magic apple like from the Bible, and then you can like double jump and stuff like that. It's crazy, Ains. And so I was just like, all right, so this DLC takes place after he's been redeemed, and it's trying to put you in his shoes and be like, he's a good guy now. And I was like, dude, I remember what this guy did in the games. Like, I'm not on board with this. He's a psychopath. It's so weird.
the funniest thing that speaks to this is pretty typical in most games when you have a franchise that people disagree on, right? Elu says Far Cry 4 remains my favorite. I'll hear no slander against it. And the very next comment is 4 and Primal are the worst.
So, Primal
was the worst. Yeah, we are
Primal. No, I'm going to defend Primal. I like Primal quite a lot.
That's craziness.
Wait, really?
Craziness?
Yeah, I do.
You've lost all credibility.
Wow, I'm surprised. I've not heard that opinion. I would love to hear your take on that.
Oh my
God. No, I think Primal was interesting, and I think it ditched some of the stuff, the tonal dissonance that I have with Far Cry, because it was so focused specifically on the environment and taking out the gun component. I really liked Primal. I like to see them do weird things. I mean, I like Blood Dragon.
Did you like New Dawn?
That was fun.
I didn't like New Dawn. New Dawn bounced off me. Like, I wanted to see them be wackier, and it was mostly just the same as 5.
Yeah, it was. I just think the tone of 5 and the DLC around it is kind of like really.
I think
weird.
Ubisoft storytelling often leaves something to be desired.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Far Cry 6, despite its weird dissonance that you're pointing out, though, is sort of great. Like, because you get both.
6
you
is
get
strong.
Like a cool story. Yeah,
6 might wind up being my favorite Far Cry. I've gotten about halfway through.
I reviewed 6, and 6 is my favorite Far Cry.
Yeah.
6, see, I don't disagree with that. I think that. Yeah, I just don't like the villain in 5. I thought that was pretty universally accepted that he was like one of the weaker ones, and so I wrote that in my review, and everybody acted like I was just I said that
for entertainment, folks, just go find whatever Travis most recently reviewed and just enjoy the comments.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm bracing for the comments on my next review. Jesus God.
I don't even know, Travis. Do you read your comments or do you try to avoid them?
I sometimes do, but I honestly don't care at all about the comments section. Yeah, it bounces off of me so fast. But I most of the time no. Most of the time, I don't even look at the.
You believe in what you wrote. I get that. It's just interesting to see like Zeitgeist, because that was the one where I was also surprised. Where it's like, oh,
yeah, usually
a lot of defenders of that guy.
Usually, when I read comments, it's because somebody tells me about it. Somebody goes like, "Dude, did you see the comments on your review?" And that's how I found out about the Far Cry 5 thing. They were like, "People are defending the villain in Far Cry 5," and I was like, "Really?" So then I went and I looked at them, and I was like, "Jesus, I had no idea people were stans." I'm always surprised at the stans out there.
I was going to say, we joke about Ubisoft here and there, but it is nice. I've said this before, like we're talking about Far Cry 6 and all this stuff, Stranger Things and these other crossovers, that they do all that for free. Like we need to call out that not a lot of AAA companies out there are doing expansions or continued content in their game to that level, especially IP licensed content, which isn't cheap, typically speaking, for free.
They have an engagement model, right? So they put one of those out, and then they'll have a Stranger Things pack or something like that. I haven't popped into the game, but they're running all of their games are quasi live services. Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and so they're still figuring it out. I mean, I again, business lawyer, I like to see companies kind of be like, okay, so that was not what we wanted to do with that Assassin's Creed, so let's try it a little bit differently over here in Far Cry land. And so, but they have we want you to be coming back and popping in and reminding you that we exist, right? Our games we make are way too big. We know this, but so when you've played 40 hours and you forget Far Cry 6 is actually still downloaded onto your Xbox, hey, you like Stranger Things, pop back in. Maybe we get another 10 hours out of you. And then also, wouldn't you like to look like this or whatever? So, I mean, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. I think it's just worth calling that kind of stuff out. We got a super chat from our brother Mo over at the Backlog Chronicles.
Yes, sir. For the $4.99 super chat. What's up, everyone? Good to see the panel's sexy faces after a couple of weeks. Cheers to everyone watching. Also, Elden Ring still owns my soul.
Sure.
Do we get an Ains freeze again?
Am I frozen?
Ains is just being a postcard for us right now.
Yeah. Oh my God, what is going on?
I thought he was just very stoic, is all.
Yeah, that's what did I. I was like, man, he's really kind of relaxed.
And the funny thing, you can still hear me, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can still hear me, and everything's fine. All right, let me refresh.
And we just have a bad lip sync, like an older video game.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Maybe he will. Nope, he's screwed everything up.
I am Dan. I love baseball. I hate most things.
That's really accurate.
Pretty good accurate, yeah.
That's
impressive.
Yeah, simple and to the point. There we go.
There we go. Good. All right, at least I know how to fix it quickly now. All right. Audio listener, sorry for the interruption. My video froze during the live stream. I don't know what happened. We're back.
I always knew you were a puppet.
Are you? Never mind. I'm not going to say the comment that first entered my head there. All right. So let's touch on Halo Infinite, not the TV show, Halo Infinite. Season 2, we got the trailer this week. We knew that it previously that was coming May 3rd. So, which, being a big Halo guy, I hadn't realized how quickly time had flown here. We're only 3 weeks away from Season 2 launching in Halo Infinite. And supposedly, the longer wait out of the gate here was because they extended Season 1 to 6 months rather than 3. And the hopeful, they haven't formally said it yet, but the prevailing thought is that, seasons should be 3 months going forward. So every quarter you would get a new battle pass. So what we know that this includes is, Kevin, that's what I was going to say, and I decided not to, but thanks for putting it in the chat. What we know is that it's going to include one new arena map, one new big team battle map, a new revised battle pass with more free unlockables and the ability to earn back the 1,000 credits or $10 in the paid path, very similar to Call of Duty and Fortnite and Rocket League.
Market expectation. They were stupid to not do that.
Agreed. And new game modes. There are, I can tell you, among the Halo community, the prevailing thought is these are good changes. Glad they're listening. They're providing a lot of feedback. They've had 2 blogs in the past 2 weeks, which are very extensive, and they talk about a ton of different things that they're doing. But there's also the prevailing thought out there, or I should say a shared thought, that this is not necessarily enough. That if this is what a season looks like in Halo for 3 months, adding 2 maps and new unlockables is not enough. And I think that goes back to the challenges with development that we've talked about extensively previously that, Travis elaborated on, which is sometimes, the expectation is too high on how quick this content can be made. But then you look at things like, I'll use Fortnite as an example, where they are just, they're probably the kings in the space right now. And I can, in terms of just delivery of content fluidly and how quick they get it out, the extensiveness to which it goes, the licensing they do with all different franchises.
They have good lawyers.
Yeah, I no joke. I play Fortnite with Luke and Joe like once a week for like an hour, right? I spent $12 on Butt Stallion yesterday for my glider because I love Tiny Tina and Borderlands. So I was like, you got me, I'm buying this. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But my point with Halo is they seem to be moving towards trying to catch up, right? They know that this launch with Infinite didn't go as planned in terms of content delivery. They're behind the 8 ball now. They're updating and saying we're moving into a position where we can more rapidly and better update the game. And if you weren't aware, some of the data miners, the guys who really dig into the Halo stuff, have found some very substantial things that are supposedly coming to Halo Infinite, including a mode called Last Spartan Standing, which is very reminiscent of a battle royale. Yeah. This other big team mode that Certain Affinity is supposed to be working on, which is supposed to be like a new Warzone, not Call of Duty Warzone, but Halo 5 Warzone type mode, which is a big PvP/PvE mode. All kinds of new weaponry, vehicles, all kinds of stuff that's supposedly coming. The question, I think, is, has Halo passed the point, and I think I know what you're going to say here, Travis, but I want to talk it through anyway, has it passed the point where the people who tried Infinite when it launched due to Game Pass and the hype around it, will they come back? Or have they kind of messed up this launch 6 months in? God, it has been 6 months, hasn't it? 6 months in, to where a lot of the casual Halo players have moved on permanently. Can they recapture that audience to bring it back to the forefront in the multiplayer kind of realm?
Yeah, the history of all games as a service games would tell you that yes, you can have a second life, and that people cannot play your game for a while and then we'll come back to it if the content is good. I think it's really easy to look at a game like Fortnite and go, look, Fortnite does games as a service wrong, Halo does it badly, therefore, Halo is worse than Fortnite. But it's important to remember it took a long time for Fortnite to get where it's at as a game as a service. They did not have a very good content delivery system when they launched. In fact, didn't they have like one map for like a year? You know, like
it
took them a lot longer to make a map, and they weren't doing the promotions. I mean, the game didn't even launch as a battle royale, so like things can change without a doubt.
So and I want to be clear about that, and I'm glad you said it, because Donnie Skills in the chat said yes, but when Fortnite first released, was the content flowing out fast? No, it wasn't. So acting like Halo is the exception, and I wasn't saying Halo's the exception. That's
for sure. No,
that's not the words that came out of my mouth.
For sure, yeah. I think Halo is. I don't know why this keeps happening, but we've yet to have a game as a service game that has launched with a good games as a service model set up under it before it launched. It just hasn't happened yet. Like every single game that comes out as game of service, it stumbles in the opening months, and maybe that's crunch. Maybe it's just they're so busy crunching they don't have a time to build a live service team. But like even all the success stories you look at, whether it's Fortnite or Destiny, they all took a really long time to get it. And I think comparatively, Halo's like they're actually like one of the better examples of a game as a service, because they're learning their lessons quick, and they aren't making as big of mistakes as some of the people who've come before them. So we'll see. I think that, you know, they still got a long way to go. I'm skeptical that with their current model, they'll be able to deliver content in a manner that will keep people engaged, week to week. But 100% absolutely, yeah, they have another shot at this, and they will also have a third or fourth shot if they stick with it. I think what we've seen in the past is that it really just depends how resilient you are and how many shots you're willing to take, because some people give up pretty quickly, like Anthem, and some people stick with it after multiple years of failing and eventually succeed. And it kind of just, I don't think 343 is planning on backing down on this. I don't think they're going to give up and just sort of say, all right, we're doing Halo Infinite 2 or anything like that. So
yes,
I think they absolutely have a chance to recapture it. And also their initial launch was lauded as being incredibly good. The content that was there was good. It was more just that they didn't have, the more follow-up content. So I think people are probably will be excited to get back in there once they see some new stuff and they go, oh yeah, you know what, Halo Infinite, I had a lot of good time with that. Let's hop back in. So
I think the point you made about is very salient, which is that unlike games like, say, Anthem, right, which BioWare was attempting for the first time. It was supposed to be this Destiny killer, giggle, and they didn't really know what they were doing. We know that 343 is not going anywhere. We know that Halo is not going anywhere. We know that the investment is being made. A huge investment has been made into this game. So
yeah,
I completely agree.
And I actually, sorry, I had one more thing pop into my head, which is that there's actually examples at 343 of them sticking to it. Master Chief Collection. If you think that game couldn't have had a second life after its disastrous launch, like look at it now. I mean, it's getting a firefight mode added. Apparently, they announced this week the flood thing that they're adding. And then like there's so many examples of like terrible launches, terrible game as a service model turning it around. Like No Man's Sky is a great example where that game is now beloved by a lot of people. Master Chief Collection, I think a lot of people say, is like one of the better, kind of packages you can get in gaming right now. So to suggest that like it's not redeemable, it was so bad. Like Halo Infinite had a really good launch, and I think the fact that they didn't have a live service model set up is unfortunate. Not the way I would have done it, certainly, but I also just live and eat and breathe the live service game, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall, as a lot of people did in the industry. It's like, all right, well, they don't have a live service team, so I don't know how they're going to keep this going after launch. But I think the argument that they can't have a second life. I mean, look at Master Chief Collection. If you stick with it, you can fix it and earn people's trust back. You know?
And to your point, to give credit where credit is due, they seem to be they're very communicative with their audience, right? With their fans. They're extremely transparent. Sometimes that can bite you in the ass a little bit, and it has for them. But there are many people who appreciate their transparency, even when it's not the news you want to hear. And the other thing is that I would argue, and I think you've said it, but I'm agreeing with you, is that they are actually moving faster than most other companies would do in the same situation. And they're making changes more rapidly. So I think that the kind of outrage that is among the portion of the Halo community, or even worse, the people who don't play Halo and just want to be outraged about something, I think they're kind of missing the point and not giving too much credit where it's due. Now, I know there is the other side of the coin. There's a few people in chat I know that, are disappointed in 343, and they kind of, I think it was Sark said, lumping the show in with the disappointment with 343 too, which is a different topic. But
although fair
to look at 343 holistically, sure. But I think that I think season 2, what they announced this week here, I'll end on this, and then I know Rick and Dan will have commentary too. But I think what it does is it shows that, one, they're obviously listening. They specifically wrote out tens and tens of kind of player feedback and what they're doing to address it. And it shows that they're willing to make the changes and improvements that fans, players want to see from Halo Infinite. It's not everything right out of the gate, of course, but they're doing a good job, I think, in evolving the game forward. So that's where I'll leave it. What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I thought that was a good conversation, and I always yield to the real Halo fans here, in you and Travis. I would say that I have no faith in 343 as a company. So I think transparency and communication is good. I think some of what launched with the Halo Infinite is suffering from the smartest person in the room syndrome. And if you actually look at the changes, at least as you just announced, I haven't read these blog posts, it's remarkable how often these kinds of different approaches and different things that they try to do with whatever it is, the battle pass or anything else, not just 343, but all these companies wind up wheeling into delivering Fortnite. Like that the market expectations are setting certain requirements, like getting that money back for paying for battle pass and things that, to me, are pretty patently obvious. If you just had a person looking at the marketplace before evaluating what your economics are going to be, and skipping that, to me, is suggestive of a certain amount of ignorance or a desire to move things in a different direction that clearly didn't work. And I'm just talking about like the meta economics of this, because I think Halo and all first-person versions of this have problems that maybe the Fortnites of the world don't have, which is it's much easier to sell third-person cosmetics. That it's harder to kind of break into various ways to make this work. Whereas Fortnite, which is not my favorite game in the world, but I'm consistently impressed by what they can do with their content delivery. And yes, it didn't start out that way, but also we can't just pretend it's 7 years ago or what, when you're talking about bringing in a competitor into this market. Fortnite exists, Apex exists, all these various things exist. You're playing in that pond now. So you should be taking notes. We see that throughout game development. We see that from great publishers and great developers say, hey, that's a cool idea. We're going to bring that in. And for whatever reason, because these companies don't necessarily have that live services experience that Travis talks about, then they try to build it up themselves when copying each other's homework would seem to be where most of them wind up. And so I look at what you just said for Halo. I don't see myself going back to it. I have a certain amount of wonder about whether or not Halo works as something that can drive live service engagement over the long term against everything else in the market, period. If they had everything working to where they wanted to, whether that actually plays with Fortnite that has more general audience uptake, or whether it plays with the three-player games that are popular as well. I don't know. I liked Halo, back in law school, but I played it. I said, and then I bounced out of it. But that's just me. So if it can find an audience, I think that's great. And I think it's good that they're listening, because that's the most important thing. But in terms of their delivery, and we don't have to bring up the TV show, but I don't. They've got many hands in different pots.
Yeah.
And I think that every single thing that they have put in front of me, I have thought lesser of them for their capacities to actually make something that I personally will enjoy. That doesn't mean I'm the only person that is judging these things. That doesn't mean I should be. But I think 4 to 5 to Infinite. I know you disagree with me on this. I don't want to fight on it. But that I think it's essentially a downward slope of constantly reinventing what the heck our story is, what our game is, in a fashion that isn't conducive to evolution and making something better the next time. So I hope that has changed. I hope that they're going to graft on more on Infinite and that they're going to do these various things. But do I see somebody coming in and hanging out for 3, 4, 6 months for 2 modes and a battle pass? Not really. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I don't have much more to say on that because I'm not going to be engaging with this product more. So I much prefer, your opinions on that. But from the economics, it's like, of course you got to give the battle pass money back. That's how this works.
Yeah, you said a couple things there I'd like to touch on. One, I like your reference to grafting because that was obviously an Elden Ring reference, so I appreciate that. But you did mention around copying each other's homework, and there's a market expectation of how certain things will work in these games, and you were speaking primarily from a monetization standpoint, which is not only true, but they also missed the mark on things that are non-monetized in the game. For instance, launching without any sort of progression system is just baffling. Like, it's baffling. How do you launch a Halo multiplayer game with no progression outside of a battle pass? Battle pass is not, from a profile perspective, what players look for progression.
If I could just interject really quickly,
sure.
It's so funny to hear you talk about lack of progression, because one of the things that Halo had right off the bat was a ranked competitive system, which is something I've been trying to get in Destiny forever. I'm trying to will it into existence. So anyway, but I agree with you on the whole, but they do have some progression systems.
They do have ranked. If you're ranked.
Ranked is God, do I wish we had that in Destiny. Jeez. But yeah.
It's kind of funny, right? One game gets one thing right, the other game gets one thing right, and just please put those together.
I actually think Ho hit the nail on the head. Is why don't companies steal the model from each other? We've seen what works, and it's just every single game as a service launches having not built the infrastructure to support the game as a service. And I'm wondering if it's just because they're waiting to see how it reacts to the initial game before they build up that whole team and infrastructure. I don't know if it's strategic or if every company's just stupid and
it's not a purely creative endeavor, right? So, I mean, the weird thing about live services that game companies have been getting to is that you really are bringing in the financial folks, and you're hiring economists and things like that to help function in this. And that's not how should this level be designed? What does the flow of gun bullets look like? And that's a new interaction. And what I would be willing to bet is they look at something like Fortnite and something else and says, well, why would we give 1,000 V-Bucks away? I don't understand. That's not driving engagement because they don't have all the analytics. They're not sharing them around. So they say, I don't think that's driving things. So let's put it out there without it. It's oh God, it was. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I think
you want to make more money. So the financial folks come in and say, well, this will cost us this. Because, I mean, I say I play Fortnite, and I do, but I don't know that I've paid for a battle pass in 2 years. I just flip it.
Yeah.
So I think it's the smartest man in the room syndrome. I really do. It's we can make more money. They're doing it wrong. We're going to fix it, and we're going to get more. And they're oh, okay.
And I think there's typically a disconnect. I think people miss the fact when you look at games that are this big, and you talk about gaming development companies that are this big. Let's not forget that I believe last check, and someone can correct me, but 343 themselves. I'm not talking about contractors, other companies they work with, but 343 themselves are over 600 people, which is a big development studio.
It's huge.
And and you have within that, you have all of these different teams that are working on things independently. And there can often be a disconnect of, okay, in video game development, there's this domino effect, right? Things have to align with many other things. And there can often be a disconnect with how things are designed and implemented. I mean, they've talked pretty transparently around one of the big silly complaints. It's not a silly complaint, it's valid, but it's theoretically it's silly, is that in Halo you have armor cores, right? You have a certain armors, and your cosmetics, your color, basically only work on certain ones. And it's well, who thought that was a good idea? You should be able to wear any of these armors and put your colors on. And what 343 tried to say is, yes, but they've been meticulously designed so that the colors match with certain armor cores, right? So it's we hear you, we're going to change that for you, but the engine wasn't built that way to just allow any color on any core. And it's well, that's a fundamental problem. That what they're telling you is that this is a lot more work to change than it should be. And whoever designed
trust, right? To me, that's an idea that dies on the whiteboard. I mean, that's the trusted design. Why would you frame it that way?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
what's funny, this is also a game as a service Pandemic. Every single game has things where players are this should be so easy to fix.
I know.
Developers explain. They just show all their cards eventually, and they just go, "Look, this is why it's tough." And then players are just I just can't believe it's that hard. Why?
Well, and that comes back to what do I say all the time, right? It's not my problem. I mean, I like the excuse of transparency.
For sure.
But it's when you describe that to me, Ains, it's like that's a manager somewhere says, "Whoa, that doesn't make sense."
Someone should have stopped that way earlier in the process to say no.
No, I get it.
But to 343's credit, they also didn't say it's players' problem. You're stuck with it. They're actually changing it. They said
that's the right answer. That's the right answer. No, and it's not. I always say that, and it comes across as glib, and I say it mostly to Bungie. But it's I get that. I think that transparency is important. It's just in terms of sitting here at the end, and I'm sure they think the same. Is that you go back to whatever 5 years ago, and you're like, why does our engine do that way?
That's the point. Is that when you think about from an application dev, right? You think about requirement design. That's something where someone at the start, way back in the requirement design, should have said all skins work on all armors. Period. That should have been a hard requirement, right? Not get to the point where the game is out. The engine doesn't support the colors going on different and then saying, oh, we've got to change this because now you've got to go back and you've got a whole lot of extra work to do that you shouldn't have to have had to do, if that makes sense.
I also think that the reason it was built this way, it obviously was intentional, but I don't think it was a game design thing. I think it was like how can you monetize a game as a service thing? And it was like, okay, well, you can create multiple skins that work on different cores, and then you can monetize each core, and then you don't, it limits how much you can use like a color scheme if it's limited to that core. I honestly think it was like here's the monetization design team, and they're going to design this service thing, which it's a free service, the multiplayer application. So I get that some of that has to be designed around it, but I just think they underestimated how much fans were going to kind of balk at that. And
what I still say, ripping it out of the package is your choice, not mine. So the fact that you made it free is not great
for sure. I mean, they want more people to play the game. I got it. I think it'll probably work in the long run.
Yeah, I think it will in the long run.
And you saying they missed or underestimated how much that would matter to fans goes back to Hoke's point of then you misunderstand the Halo audience, period.
For sure.
For God's sakes, the biggest for 4 years. This is not a joke, by the way. If you're not a Halo fan, you probably don't know this. For 4 years in Halo 5, the Halo community has complained that the undersuits, not the armor, the undersuits are gray, not black.
Jesus Christ.
That's how serious Halo fans
the Reddit has memes for years on the Under Armour.
So much so that when they designed Infinite, they came out from the start before it launched and said, we have black undersuits. Because they know.
I remember that announcement.
Yeah, they know that the Halo community is crazy with the details.
I was going to say, so to play on 343's side for just a second, I don't trust them, and that's fine for me. But I do not relish dealing with a fan base like
very
that.
True.
I have sympathy. I have sympathy for the Under Armour is wrong.
Well,
okay, 343.
And that's where Halo fans like me try to. And I know OBM, One Bad Mother from Xbox Era is in the chat too, who's a huge Halo fan. Runs You Had Me at Halo, a Halo podcast. Please check it out. Give a shout out to him. But you know, it is a great name. When we play Halo together and talk about it, that's some of the stuff we talk about is like, yeah, we're passionate about it, love it to death, play it all the time, and want to see these changes. But that's where the line gets drawn, right? Like it goes back to the whole have some respect for the developers and understanding and things. And one thing he said in chat, which I also wanted to call out, which people often forget, is that the one thing that gets overlooked often is how many diverse parts Halo Infinite has too. They're currently building Forge, which, as we understand it, is going to be an incredibly expansive content creation suite.
They certainly sold it highly.
Yes. Well, and there's people using it now who I've spoken to, and
there's also a reason to believe them. I mean, they have
I mean, they say it's nuts. They have campaign expansions they promised. They have arena with full ranked and Halo Championship Series. Big team battle and all these other game modes, map designs. I mean, it's a very extensive, expansive game, more so than something like Fortnite, something like Apex Legends. It has a lot more parts to it. Go ahead.
No, I don't really. I was going to jump to Fortnite. Fortnite's a simpler concept, but they're certainly doing more with it on a weekly basis at bare minimum.
For the modes they have one mode And they have no building mode now, but I mean, you have a map that evolves, and you have a single basically gameplay style. There's no campaign, there's no content creation suite, there's no,
there's a content creator in Fortnite.
Not where you're creating your own game modes that the global players can play on their own map designs, like nothing like a Forge.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen the new Forge, but I mean, there's definitely there's a Fortnite creative that allows you to make game modes and things. That's how some get elevated up to the main menu.
Understood. But
I'm not really saying that it's not a lot. Of course, you say 600 people, and it strikes me, and I say, yeah, you should be able to run a game that's mostly using the same engine and making some arena battles and hopefully campaign stuff eventually. Maybe with an ending. And that would be a lot of people for anything. But I mean, you're talking about a real lot of people. I'm not disagreeing with you on your premise that there's a lot of moving parts and things like that. But I don't want to overly be generous to them, because there's a lot of companies that make a lot of good stuff that have a lot of multiple applications that do different things with a lot fewer people and resources than 343 had put on them.
Yeah. And yeah, so to clarify my words, because Joe in the chat said they have Forge. My buddy made a Cyberpunk map. It's not that they don't have a creation suite, but what I'll say is when Forge releases for Halo Infinite, look at what you can do in Halo Infinite's Forge versus Fortnite.
And I'd be thrilled.
There's a very different.
I'm not in the beta. I'm not a special confidential Forge player, so they're talking it up. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of it's easy to say we have a Forge. There's a very broad level of content creation power and tools and the development that goes into that in comparison between different games.
And I'm glad to hear that people are doing that. I really am. Again, it comes from a place where I don't have faith, and they're asking me to have faith. So all right, when you show it to me, I'll be thrilled.
For sure. I think whether or not you have faith in 343, which I think we all have pretty strong opinions here, except for Dan on that. I think something we can all appreciate is that 343, they earn the bacon, man. Like they stay in it. They have one of the most difficult to please fan bases out there, as you can tell by the Under Armour discussion, like that they really, really are on them. And they've also had some of the biggest, most public kind of shamings in Master Chief Collection, and they have stuck with it for multiple years and put up with all of the vitriol and hate that they have. And I think that, to their credit, like that gives me way more confidence in their game as a service, because that's one of the biggest red flags with other ones, is that when the fan backlash comes, you see this like recoiling internally, and they're not used to it, and they're like, oh, like this isn't what the fans want, maybe we should. And 343 is just unflappable. They're just like, yep, we've seen it all before. We know you guys are just gonna destroy us and light us on fire, and we're welcoming that, and we're gonna stick to it and fix it. So I think that is, like, to me, confidence in 343 comes down to that. It's like, I just think that they have the right bones and DNA to survive in games as a service. It's just a matter of them learning. And I think
they have a very special relationship, right? They have a company that's worth trillions of dollars that really can't afford for the Halo brand to die.
Probably not.
They have strong backing. And 343 would still be 343 and in charge of Halo, regardless if you changed every personnel at the company, because Microsoft needs a company making Halo. So it's a very interesting position. And yeah, you're right. You don't see the Square Enix president's version of telling Crystal Dynamics that they were the wrong company for the job. You don't see those kinds of call outs. But yeah, to me, I give them half credit, because I think that's a good point. I don't think they had a choice, though, with respect to the MCC. That had to be fixed. And so what I see on the negative half credit side is, well, you hit the launch button in interesting places twice that I can see. And that's all right. I'm not against them, and I'm all in favor of game developers, and I'm glad they're doing the work. I don't have faith in the product coming out. It's not the people. It's keep showing me stuff. And again, I might be the exact wrong person to ask, period, because the Halo Infinite just didn't work for me.
Yeah, no, you definitely are. You definitely are. I think they're living in a world where they feel like they got the initial product right. They just got the model wrong. And they weren't ready. They weren't ready.
Go down that road. I mean,
they need to go down.
You don't need Hogue there playing your game.
Yeah, I think if they keep the fundamentals right and build on the success they had, it's going to be great. But I think this whole, the stuff you see on the internet of like Halo dead, or because they didn't get the launch right, it's over. It's just like, just look around. That's just not true. Just look at games. Just look at games. Yeah.
I agree with you.
There's plenty of examples there. So
and there's plenty of examples that are way worse than Halo. True. Like launched in a bad like broken state and had a second life. And even at 343, like just at that one company as a use case, there's examples of that not being true.
Yeah.
So
no, I think you're exactly right that the good content will be found, especially in free to play land. And I have hope for him, and I have hope for everybody that loves Halo. But it's probably not going to be me.
Fair enough, for sure. I know, Dan, I've been watching your face while we've been talking this because I know you've preached many times on the show. We were talking about copying each other's homework, and the model. I know you always say the model is there. Like what you need to do to be successful. Why didn't you do it? And I can almost hear you saying that in my head.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it for me. I mean it's with anything though. I mean I watch my kids run into a wall 15 times. I'm like, the wall's there, dude. I mean, stop doing it. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, well, I'm sorry, live service games.
Making games is not that hard. Live service not that hard for sure.
No, not that hard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
not that it's your problem, but it is hard.
Copying the model is easier.
Yeah, he means to see what would be successful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's what I'm talking about. It drives me nuts. The problem with these live service games is that there's so many of them, and I've said this before too. You got to kind of strike while the iron's hot. I have no doubt that Halo will be fine and successful, and it'll be whatever it wants to be. But the problem is, one or two games comes out between now and when they figure their crap out, and draw some of these people away. It's a lot harder to regain that trust. Now, true Halo fans,
those games have the same problem, though.
Right, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, you look at like Anthem, it was like right there, and it was like, okay, they could potentially fix this. And then Division 2 came out, and you're like, wait, this is way better in every single way. Yeah. And it was just like, and then Anthem just went away, and there was a lot of other things I'm sure that went with it, but it just bothers me. But I have really no dog in this fight because I don't play it. But that being said, if for some reason they released a naked chief skin for Halo 2, I will buy that and then play, and whatever I have to do. I will
for the
play
Halo TV show.
It's the TV show pack. It's naked.
I would do it in a second. It would be the greatest pack ever released, even though you couldn't really see yourself, which is fine. But like other people could be running around, with just like blurred out butt cheeks and the front part, whatever's there.
Sure.
I don't know. So
do you think it feels like, I know someone else said this, and it feels like there's a missed opportunity there too? You have Halo Season 2 coming out, right? And you have, to be fair, we don't know everything that's in the Battle Pass, so I'll say that up front. But you have this Halo TV show launch, which, whether you're indifferent about it or not, doesn't matter. It's still
different. I don't think anybody's indifferent. I think everybody has a really strong opinion about this. Yeah.
But I mean, like you have this Halo TV show launch. It seems like the perfect time to have TV show related content in your game.
Did they not even have a buy pack?
I do not think they want that. And also, to be fair, it's a separate studio. It's not like 343's like
I know, but it just feels like you got to be careful because their name's on the damn
title sequence.
For sure.
343 comes up in the titles. So I mean they're associating their goodwill with that product.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you can call your show Halo and say that 343 isn't involved at all, the custodians of Halo. But I think that probably with good reason they're trying to keep them separate, and I don't think that that's a mistake, even if the Halo show was super successful, just because it's not in canon. And I think
there will be a silver team pack. I guarantee it, Travis. Guaranteed.
I don't know. We're not seeing it anytime soon. I think that show would have to be doing a lot better.
We'll say if you didn't know, the Halo multiplayer in Infinite is canon. And it's built into the storyline.
Has a story.
Why are they strapping a story to it in Season 2?
It does. It had a story in 1.
It had like a story trailer.
We didn't see much of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably some story element. Again, the data miners and stuff have found that there's some story elements and even cutscenes.
That's what I resent that as a story lover and not a particular Halo multiplayer fan. No.
But shouldn't that be how multiplayer is? Wouldn't that be more likely to draw you in if you playing multiplayer had like a story end game?
No, I reject it. If you put the carrot behind something I'm not enjoying, I resent it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess for those of us who are really enjoying the multiplayer, it's like, oh, this is next level. Like it's like
I get it. Yeah. Look, go enjoy your Halo, but it's like I want more narrative out of what Infinite provided, and we're gonna put it behind a multiplayer mode that I just it's not that I'm kind of neutral towards it. I wasn't doing it for me, but I didn't hate it or anything. You put it back there, and I'm like, nope. I guess I'll go watch whatever the equivalent of My Name Is Bife. Explain to me what's happening in Halo.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm excited, obviously, for season 2 to launch. New battle. I finished the first battle pass like so quickly because I was addicted to the game. So I haven't. That's kind of one of the weird things, right? Is like I finished the battle pass so quickly because there's no other progression system. There was, I was playing for fun, which is fine. I'm of the mindset where I was just dedicated playing, but it should seemingly come at a good time. All of our first quarter kind of mad rush of excellent games as at least seeming to slow down over the next few weeks. We'll see.
Look at the rest of April. April looks pretty clean. As best I can tell.
So I'm excited for Halo to launch. Yeah, it's nice. It's almost nice to get a break, which sounds weird. Like we used to complain we wanted more great games, and now we're to the point where it's like, can we just take a break?
We got to swing back and finish Tokyo and finish Tiny Tina.
Me too.
And for those of us who are in the industry, we're not going to get a break because of all the stuff that's coming in June and that we have to play.
Does E3? I'm going to say E3. It wasn't E3 time. What the June timeline pop in early for you guys?
Yeah. Basically, it happens like beginning of May. So I've got like a 2-week break, but I'm still reviewing stuff and stuff. So like, yeah, it's going to get good. And also IGN is sort of stepping up to fill E3. Like we're doing our Summer of Games thing now, which is sort of like IGN does E3, but digitally.
That's great. I have some comments on how you do interviews with developers. I'll put them in the DM.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But those interviews I totally have anything to do with.
Yes, Travis, please send it up to the top levels.
For sure. Yeah.
Dan and Ryan
I stay as far away from hard news as I actually possibly can.
Dan and Ryan are already hate me because of my tweets.
All right. A couple other things, guys. We got some big games returning. So there was, I want to say this, there was kind of big news out of Activision-Blizzard around QA testers and their jobs and stuff. I was going to touch on that this week. I think we're going to talk in an extended form about that. So I'm going to save that actually and talk about
it. Between this week and next or whenever we're back on, I probably have a video up explaining in Virtual Legality why they have to treat the Raven quality assurance folks differently now that they're under a pending NLRB election. So that'll probably be substantive help as well.
Yes, exactly. So we'll let that kind of simmer for just a week till next week, and we'll talk about that more. But we got a super chat from Mr. Gecko Gamer is back. I want to get to real quick.
Yeah, man. Thank you again, Gecko. Again. Is No Man's Sky the business model for live service games?
I think no.
I was going to say I don't think so.
For one, they're sort of like a half a live service game. They're really only live service because they launched in such a poor state and then had to fix it. So they're kind of a live service in the same way that Master Chief Collection is.
Like everything's free.
Well, and I think you can't run that as your model unless what is their employee number that they're carrying? 20?
Exactly.
It's very low.
Wildly different approach.
Yeah, it's much smaller. I think the successful models are Fortnite and Destiny, and it sort of depends on whether you want to do small but constant updates or big but sporadic updates like Destiny. It kind of just depends on what type of game you're making. And right now it's weird because Dan was saying that if you don't strike while the iron's hot, you have other games that come out and compete with it. That is true, but also it's not a zero-sum game. Like every other game has the exact same problem. We don't have a live service game yet with 5,000 employees where every 2 weeks we're getting a significant content drop. And I think that is probably going to happen sometime in the future. It'll probably be like Tencent or someone who does this, and they just have like this machine that just pours out every 2 weeks something. But right now, the best we have is smaller content drops that happen semi-regularly but don't have a ton of stickiness to them. And then the other one, which is large content drops that happen pretty sporadically. But we don't have like a super games as a service Goliath yet that's able to just constantly release content. I think until we do, the best use cases you have are probably Fortnite and Destiny and those sorts of games. So
I want to quickly mention Apex too, but I know Dan has to take off early this week, guys. He's got an appointment with his kids. So Dan,
we're actually, speaking of Apex, that's where we're going. We're going to an Apex tournament.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I hope they do well.
Party. Yeah, I didn't know they played until 2 days ago. So there's that.
Just keep them from running into walls; they'll be fine.
Secret life of Dan's children.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Chad, and I will see you probably in a couple weeks. We'll see.
Dan's actually away next week too, so a couple weeks.
I'll be in NYC. If anybody wants to buy me some pizza, feel free to hit me up. I'll be at the Draper. I already talked to Cog. I told him we're getting together, so
nice.
We'll see what.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you next.
All right, Dan. Talk to you soon.
I'm Dan again.
Yeah, we'll switch to this. Oh, my cat is taking Dan's place, apparently. Hello, Darwin. A couple of people in the chat mentioned Apex Legends, and I think Apex has generally done a really good job in terms of keeping their fan base engaged. But I will say, in case you've forgotten, go back and look at the launch, and they too were another example where I'm going off of memory here. I could be wrong, but I know it was months and months where nothing really changed, and the first update was adding one character.
Yeah, the operator thing. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, they had the same problem. Warframe is another, like, they use the Destiny model, very successful game, but they have the large gaps where nothing happens and then something drops.
Warframe was super slow out of the gate.
Correct. Elder Scrolls Online has a very similar sort of situation. Little difference. MMO, Final Fantasy 14. Excellent game, has also the same problem. And actually the game creator of Final Fantasy 14 tells you, just don't play my game when there's nothing to do, go play other stuff. Yeah. and then resubscribe when there's content you want, right? Like I just think, there MMO is it a live service? Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of you're splitting hairs, but it is I would consider a live service. Yeah.
So the example is very true, and I know you've just said this recently, Travis, but yeah, I mean, it feels like these teams, they focus on launch, they get it out, they have a general outline of what they want to do post launch, and they come, there's a lot of realizations and learnings that take place, and then they have to work themselves into a rhythm, and it feels like that's where most of them go.
100%. And 343's cardinal sin was giving a roadmap with specific dates on when they want to drop content.
Yes.
And that is literally, like, every game as a service that's done that, it's been like, don't do that. It always bites you. You never hit those goals. And then players are like, you lied to me on this promise you made. Here's the contract I have.
That's when I get the requests for, can you do a false advertising video?
For sure, dude. And it's just like, oh, man.
I can talk to you about why it's not going to work, but sure, let's do a video.
Why did you do that, 343? You've seen it. You've seen that backfire at every other game as a service.
The closest one I've seen recently is Battlefield 2042. It's like, you are walking some lines. You really are.
There's a class action potential there for sure.
That thing's a mess. All right, so we've got Max Payne returning, guys. That was a cool announcement this week. Remedy and Rockstar have come to an agreement. It's a very interesting agreement. We've got the details on our site from their press release if you want to check it out. But the gist of it is that Max Payne 1 and 2 are going to be remade in the Northlight engine. That's Remedy's kind of premier engine that Control was made in. And
Alan Wake remastered.
Yep, and Alan Wake 2, that's obviously coming.
Good game out there.
So Max Payne 1 and 2 as a single product, so it's going to be a collection of the two. It has a AAA budget, according to Remedy, that Rockstar is funding. No timeline, of course. They're just getting started on this, probably going to be a little while, of course, but really kind of cool to think about. And they specifically said remakes. They're not just remastering, I think, probably because Max Payne 1 and 2 are that old where
Northlight, you need to remake it, period.
Yeah, you can't just like up-res them, right? So I'm really kind of intrigued because Max Payne 1 and 2 were fantastic games for their time, really enjoyed them. And I'm really interested to see what comes out of this. So it's exciting. I hope they do it obviously justice and do it right, but it's going to be, I think, the most interesting thing when you talk about a remake for a game that's old is what do they adjust to kind of account for the improvements that we've made in those types of games in the past 20 years, 20 plus. I can't remember when Max Payne 1 released. Someone can tell me. But it's a very long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long time ago. So I'm just, I'm
port of the PC.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So very excited about this, but Remedy seems to be taking on a lot. They've got Alan Wake 2, they've got Max Payne 1 and 2 now. They've got this deal with Epic Games. There's a lot going on over there.
Hope it's better than Crossfire X.
Yeah, I mean they got some contractor work for their money, which it wouldn't surprise me if you had some money flow there that was going to help some of their other more important stuff from that kind of thing. That's when you get Sega suing Gearbox and whatnot. look, I think it's great. I think first of all, I think it's you described it as an unusual agreement, and I agree that the way they announced it is. But if you break it down, it's a publisher agreement.
Yes,
Rockstar was looking for someone to make Max Payne. They could have done it internally. They could have gone, the equivalent of Blue Point. And they said, why not ask Remedy? And Remedy said, sure. So Rockstar's paying for the game to be developed, and then you see them describe a royalty back to get the money back, and it's a publishing agreement. But it's great to have the original company doing it. Max Payne had some of my favorite stuff. For those that don't know and think it's just a gangster shooter, it has a lot of fourth wall stuff. It has a lot of stuff that if you like Alan Wake or you like Control, is super, super weird that goes into I hesitate to oversell it, but like Norse mythology in the middle of all of the storytelling in that game. And it's excellent. If you haven't played them, they're also pretty short. So the putting them together makes a lot of sense. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Rockstar itself releases a Max Payne 3 up-res port at a similar time to take advantage of all that, because Max Payne 3 is much bigger, much longer, much more pretentious in the Rockstar fashion. But it does go with the other two games. So if you're selling those first two, I can't imagine they wouldn't release an up-res of Max Payne 3, which I actually like, especially as like a moment in time in Rockstar's development history as not a Grand Theft Auto or a Red Dead Redemption and things. It's a very interesting little curio. So I do recommend it. Is
it Rock? I was thinking, is that Rockstar's? So for history, Max Payne 1 released in July of 2001 for Windows, and then 2000
seasoned.
I was in 6th grade.
God damn it! And 2002 for PS2, Xbox, and Apple Macintosh. And a different version of the game. I did not know this or don't remember this. A different version of the game was released for the Game Boy Advance in 2003, which is
I think it's like overhead, right? It's
no idea. Okay. But what I was going to say is Max Payne 3, was that the last game they made outside of Red Dead 2? And
it might be LA Noire.
Bully? Oh, LA Noire. It was
LA Noire.
That was 2011.
Max Payne 3 was 2012. So the last game, maybe.
Well, it could be. I thought LA Noire was after it, but I could definitely be wrong.
It was before. Yeah.
Okay.
May 15th. But anyway, pretty cool to see. And I hope, to your point, we do get something with Max Payne 3 as well. That would be cool to see.
Look, I'm not running their business department, but when you're going to pay for Max Payne 1 and 2 to be made, you might as well throw Max Payne 3
They'll do that. That's such a Rockstar move. Definitive edition, and then it won't.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it'll be a great remaster. I think you're going to get something equivalent to maybe the Grand Theft Auto, 3-pack, but just the up-res version, the Chrono Cross remake. We'll just put these in categories.
Yeah, you're gonna. The frame rate will be worse than it is on 360.
Oh, god damn it, Chrono Cross.
But yeah, I don't know. Still cool.
You give and you take away, man.
I really like when we get these announcements that are completely out of the blue. Like it was like Tuesday morning, and they're like, "Hey, Max Payne 1 and 2 are being remade." It's like,
how about Kingdom Hearts 4 on a Sunday morning? That was weird.
Sunday morning. Yeah,
I was trying to figure it out. Is that like a different? What is that?
Yeah, I think in Japan it's like Monday or something.
Yeah. I was trying to. It's like it's got to be different in Japan, right? Because this is a super weird time for that.
Well, we might as well segue to that.
Yeah, segue.
Sure.
Yeah. So just announced this morning, just like 2 hours before we started recording, was that Kingdom Hearts is returning. Not only with Kingdom Hearts.
Did it leave? It's returning. Did it go anywhere? I feel like we just got a new one. Like,
has it ever actually been here?
Oh my god. Well, it's been in our hearts. It hasn't been in our souls.
It's been in our Kingdom Hearts.
You guys. So we're getting Kingdom Hearts 4, which there's a trailer for, and there's also announced Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, which is going to be another iOS and Android game. Which no dates, of course. Thank God they don't put dates on this because they wouldn't hit them. So we got trailers for both of these this morning, about 8 minutes to watch them both. You can check those out. As I said prior to the show and talking with you guys, I have no knowledge of Kingdom Hearts, literally zero, other than
no one does.
Other than the people who are even fans of this franchise know how convoluted and messy it is to get the story out of it. So I'll let you guys kind of touch on this. Are you at least excited about the announcement?
So I've been a Kingdom Hearts fan. I've played them all. I enjoyed the concept of the first one. I really enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 2.
The way you said fan, and you were like,
fan doesn't really work for this because there's a level way beyond me. But it's like I've played the games and I enjoyed them for the most part. I was very disappointed in Kingdom Hearts 3, which will already be upsetting somebody somewhere. In so far as I thought that the story had gotten past them completely, and the Disney stuff was pointless and repetitive of the movies themselves. And then if you actually go and watch this trailer, I do recommend it. It is it's bizarre. Sora is in a real city doing things that look like the original trailers of Final Fantasy 13 Versus. It feels like they're working through some stuff about Versus getting canceled or changed into 15. And I'm not excited about it remotely, but that's where I'm at this point. They lost me somewhere between the 9 games that it took them to get to Kingdom Hearts 3, which was supposed to be a finale kind of concept, which I thought they totally whiffed on. And so good for folks that want to play the new one. I will say the trailer itself, kind of aggressively defensive. And I know that sounds odd, but the way these trailers work that come out of Square Enix from time to time is they just give messages directly to the audience. And it basically starts out with, if this isn't the world you were expecting, get out of here. Don't come join us here. This is what 4 is going to be. And then it finishes off with and if you do take that step to get out of here, don't expect your old world to come back. Like the actual message is, we're not going to go do what Kingdom Hearts was before. We're going to do whatever thing pops into our heads at this point in time. This is the new Kingdom Hearts. Get into it or not. We don't care. It's what we're doing. And those are the lines that are selected. And it's the same kind of messaging you might have seen when Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced, where it said, we're making the promise now, but it'll be different, it'll change. And that's all in the lines that they use. Very similar approach. They like to be passive aggressive and weird, which I respect. They're their own company, but okay, you tell me to get out, I'm out.
The fact, as you were saying that, it was occurring to me that I'm sure there's a publisher out there for each of us, a major publisher, where when you see their games or you see their announcements, they just kind of don't do anything for you. You pay attention to it, you know what it is, you're knowledgeable on kind of the surface level of the subject. But for me, as I was thinking, as you were saying that, Rick, and I was thinking through whether it be Ubisoft or EA or any of these major publishers, 2K, and obviously PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, all these things. I was thinking to myself, if there's a publisher where every time they make an announcement, I read it, I watch the trailer, I want to make sure I'm knowledgeable on kind of what's going on, but literally has zero impact to what I'm going to play or do from a game perspective, it's got to be Square Enix. I have really no passion for anything.
Okay, so let me put mine in context here. Square Enix releases probably my favorite games. That's what I love is Square Enix releases. But a couple of things. One, we talked about faith earlier with 343. I never have any faith that anything they will ever show will come out on any time frame I consider reasonable. So you show me the Magic in the Making trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4, I'll see you when I see you. I'm not going to put that into something I'm excited about, period. I got a bit excited for Final Fantasy 16 when they actually said, well, this is actually pretty close to done. We're taking a change in approach from Final Fantasy 15. We're only showing this to you when we're confident it's going to be out pretty soon. And we're going to talk to you about it all next year. And then they didn't.
Nope,
and
they sure didn't.
It's not soon. And then I bit on the marketing a little bit. It says, well, Final Fantasy VII Remake was built so we can use the engine. We're going to get parts out quicker. This is designed to be svelter process. It's 3 years ago, Haas. What are we talking about here? So you have to put Square Enix in a specific bucket. But their actual releases, I mentioned Final Fantasy VII Remake, this is my second favorite game of that year. So they release stuff that I like. But outside of their little stuff, which does come out at a better cadence, I put it in a side drawer and say, sure. Now, I will give Kingdom Hearts 3 credit. When they had their initial announcement, when they also announced they were going to be on Unreal, that Kingdom Hearts process seemed to be a lot smoother than anything they do with Luminous or anything that they work on their own. So my hope is that they continue to adopt Unreal or another engine. It's whatever they want to use that helps them out there, because I think their internal engine process has really blown up some projects.
I was just, I mean, do you guys? It's almost like a topic question. Do you guys have a publisher that they announce things and you just like feel dead inside? Like
you said 2K. I don't usually feel anything for 2K announcements. I don't know whether that's their marketing approach or elsewise, because I like Tiny Tina and things, but I don't. Sure. I Midnight Suns, that was garbage. Like I show it to me when it's done. That was horrible.
Look at his face.
That you thought, okay, I'm talking about marketing. The trailer that they put out, the music, the things that they're trying to sell you on for that game, garbage.
It's an XCOM clone, right?
It's a strategy game.
It's kind of like it's a superhero XCOM type.
Have you
game.
played it? Have you seen its gameplay? It's not quite XCOM.
Okay. Well, okay, I don't know. I guess to answer Ains's question, I don't think I have a publisher that, like, every publisher's got something I like. There's certain games where I'll kind of be like, okay, let's move on. Like, PGA Tour, I'll be like, all right, I don't know anything about golf. Wait for it to go by. Certain games, but publishers, I think every publisher has something I like. Talking about Kingdom Hearts, I've played them all. I've played the main line.
I was going to say, when you guys say you've played them all, are you talking 1, 2, and 3 or all?
Let me correct myself.
So I've at least played them all. I've played the iPad game. I've played all the mobile. I played the mobile adaptations. I've watched some YouTube videos. I'm trying to understand certain aspects of things. I don't believe them. I don't think that they have very strong plotting. It's whatever floats into their heads at the moment in time.
So I've played a lot of the games, all of the mainline ones for sure, and I have not liked any of them. So I don't know why I keep playing them, but I do. I think it's just
the premise is good. You're hopeful. You're optimistic every time.
Like, okay, you know what part of it is? Like, I'm just such not the right person to it's not for me. Like I saw my first Disney film when I was 18 years old, because my childhood was just a barren wasteland. And
we're getting a little Travis lore in this episode.
I like it.
Yeah. So I don't have any like attachment to the Disney part of it. I think that's a big thing I'm missing. It's like playing Lego Star Wars without seeing any of the Star Wars movies, right?
I think it would be worse then. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, I don't know if these games are for me, but I have played them. I like RPGs. I like JRPGs. So I'm trying to find something to like in these games. Clearly, I keep playing them. But 4 doesn't super excite me. I've not really liked any of the other games. And the story, like, I have tried so hard to understand the story, and it's just a lesson in futility, man. It is so hard to figure out what's going on, even for fans. And the conversations around the story and understanding it, I think maybe that's why I play it, because I find it so amusing that this community has such a hard time with
the problem. See, the problem I have with that, and we've seen it in Star Wars, we've seen it in other things, where fans will fix things. They will try to fix things, whether that's a hyperspace jump in Star Wars or whatever's happening in Kingdom Hearts. So you get it so convoluted, where especially if you don't actually trust the writers that they're fixing these things on the fly, it just becomes a mess of fan explanations and things that, kind of could work, but they'll just retcon it right away from you if they decide something's cooler at that moment in time for that mobile game or that app or that new version. So it doesn't, there's no point in investing in it, in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah. This is a very big problem with like controlling franchises and their continuity. Some companies do it well and some just do it really, really poorly. And Kingdom Hearts is, I don't really know what they're doing, but hey, they got cool Disney worlds. So
we can't criticize them too much because they are adamant fans and they're selling copies. So
and I will say this. I think more developers should have the guts to stand by their story and their creative vision and just say to fans, we don't care what you think. Because I honestly think that listening too much to fan feedback has ruined a lot of properties who are just like too much kind of like listening to that back and forth and the backlash. And it's just like, dude, if you had a creative vision, see it through and then we'll be the judge afterwards. But you don't need to mid-flight, make retcons and change direction.
I don't mean to keep circling back to this, but that's exactly what From Software does. Here's our game. Here's how we like to make it. Here's the story. You may think it's weird. You may think it's obtuse. You may think it's convoluted. If you don't like it, it's not for you. Move on.
Correct.
And that's and that's fine, right? They've been good with it. Like, that's it.
Period. Good. Yeah. I mean, I think there is some virtue in listening to your fans, but I think when it comes to creative vision, that's probably something you should just do what you're going to do. And I mean, we've actually seen it with Halo where, they clearly had a way they wanted to go and fans didn't like it. So they snapped another way. And not that the story that they told was bad, but it does, you can see the writing and it's just like, well, we don't really know what a Halo 6 would have, if that would have been good.
No,
we never got that chance.
That's you talk about faith, right? The Halo, it feels like they snapped between 4 and 5 and then 5 and 6. Like it's like, okay, you guys, I agree with you, Travis. This is the best thing you've said all day, which is that it is I mean, I'm giving credit here.
I know, it just sounded funny the way you said it.
You can feel when like the authors lose faith in themselves, and then you have Cortana only in logs talking about what happened at the end of the last game, and it's like, no, you're unhappy with them, but you got to commit. You got to fix that.
Correct.
Not just go off.
I would have loved to see, because I actually think Halo, I've said this on the show before. I think that Halo 5 Guardians gets a bad rap. And I think that it's because we never got to see the fruition of those labors. Like usually the middle part of a trilogy is a little funky because you have like this momentum building. It's a little darker, and usually it's setting of the stage. I feel the same way about The Last Jedi. I think that movie would have been redeemed were it not for a slapping back of all of the fan expectations and Rise of Skywalker, basically, dropping the ball.
That's the only place where I think we really significantly differ there, because I think Last Jedi is a slapping back of Force Awakens. So what you get
it builds on it. We need to talk about this at some point. I love, not now, but dude, The Last Jedi is. It's so good. Anyway,
look, you can,
but I think we agree on the philosophy here, which is that like,
but the slapping back feels bad. That we can agree on, regardless of where it happens, that reversals feel bad, and it makes you feel like they don't know what they're doing. So when you have that kind of flip around in Halo, and I really think they did it with between 4 and 5 as well, that it feels like you're just kind of out there doing whatever, and that's why when you get to the end of like Infinite, it's like, oh, all right. Are you setting that up, or are we going to just reverse again? And you don't know. So that's faith. And that happens across games. You're muted, Ains.
Sorry, I keep typing in chat and muting myself. Thank you. He says, Ash said, does Infinite not follow from 5? And technically, like chronologically, it is post 5. But if you remember
stuff into logs.
Yeah, if you remember the end of 5, you got this really cool scene. I think we're well past spoiler territory at this point. You get this really cool scene where Chief leaves with Arbiter and Halsey and Blue Team and this kind of core like group, and they're taking off, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be great to follow on. And then Infinite basically scraps all that. They basically say we're years later, you're Chief, because everyone wanted the focus to be Chief, which it is. But here's the story we're going to tell in Infinite, and you don't get Arbiter, you don't get Blue Team, you don't get any of these things that they build up in 5. And I loved Infinite. We've talked about it.
I think so.
I loved Infinite for what it was, but if you're looking at it from a continuation of 5 standpoint, yeah, it's exactly what Travis said. They went back.
What my least favorite one of those ever was? I don't know if I've mentioned it in this space, but I don't like Resident Evil 4 for a number of reasons, but one of which is. Yeah. Okay. Just we're talking about narrative.
What is it slap back on?
Yeah, Resident Evil 2. So Resident Evil 2 finishes off with, we're going to take out Umbrella. Like, that's a really strong ending right into the credits. It's the last line of Resident Evil 2. And Resident Evil 4 starts out with Umbrella Corporation going down to a stock exchange deal. And then you don't deal with Umbrella the rest of the game. And that always felt awful to me. 3, by the way, in case you don't know, the Resident Evil series is simultaneous to 2. That's why it goes from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
In this narrative. But that always doing that in the intro scroll, Umbrella Corporation lost all its stock and went bankrupt. Mm-hmm. Very good. Let's go talk to Napoleon.
I don't know if that's a back slap, though. That to me, also, that sort of predates like the fan feedback kind of madness. I think that's actually kind of a new phenomenon, because fan feedback is
wanted to do something
super aggressive. I think they just wanted to do something different, but they were following their own vision, and that's what, like, if 343 wanted to make Halo Infinite all along, I would be like, oh yeah, I mean, this was their vision for it. You could judge it based on that, but the fact that you pretty much know they didn't want that, right?
We don't want to call it a slapback. The biggest anticlimax to a setup in gaming.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine, and I think you can
go nuts, and we got to take an umbrella. I mean, like literally that setup.
Yeah.
You could go find the YouTube video of this, but it starts the rock music behind as daylight comes up at the end of Resident Evil 2, and then we've got to take an umbrella into the rock music into the credits, and it's like okay, we know what we're doing next, and then you have 3, and you're like okay, we're going to deal with the simultaneous.
Yeah,
that's fine. 3's good, and then you get to 4, and you're like, I'm in Spain. Umbrella's gone.
Hogue, maybe they meant they have to take an umbrella by shorting its stock. I mean, for all we know.
I'm an economics guy. I don't find that terribly fulfilling.
Yeah. So I think but the difference is like you can judge somebody's creative like decision making. Like that's the way they went and they wanted it, and I didn't like it. But what I'm talking about is a phenomenon where they have this vision and we never get to see it realized because.
So you think 343 reacts to that? They would have shown the AI.
Oh, 100%.
100%. They had a Halo 6 planned, and we will never see it. The Last Jedi had a sequel that I think would have been great that we'll never see. I think that these things existed, and fan feedback sometimes has a negative effect. And I'm just a big fan of people sticking to the story they want to tell, and then we can judge that story. But it's a middle ground, it's a balance. There's some things you definitely want to react to fan feedback on, but I think, people who play video games are very famously not screenwriters. They're not like great storytellers, I think. And their ideas for what should happen in stories. I don't think they always have the best ideas. So,
well, to bring us completely full circle, as we were laughing about kind of Kingdom Hearts and this setup that's all over the place. If you didn't notice in the press release, they have an extra sentence here, which just was hilarious to me from looking from the outside. It says, additionally, Kingdom Hearts team announced that the highly anticipated final chapter of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road will be released in August of 2022 as a free update to Kingdom Hearts Union X Dark Road app. That's
their iPad game.
Okay, so again, it kind of speaks to the point that you've got these extra story elements out here in no man's land.
Well, the iPad game is fundamental to everything that happens in Kingdom Hearts. So that was choice.
That's exactly what the people going. That's why I brought it up, because the conversation we're having right now is a lot of fans are already saying, I cannot believe that you're continuing to put key story elements in this other thing outside of the main game.
Like the equivalent of what is the Force. I mean, like it is in that iPad game.
For sure. It's honestly like if like we talk about Halo all the time, how the books are insane, but like the fact that you don't have to read them, it'd be like if you had to read all the Halo books to understand anything that was going on. Like it's just they just do a really bad job of like continuity and management and like expectations of what their fans have to. The fact that you can't play Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3 and understand everything that's happening is crazy to me.
It's nuts. Yeah,
you can't like that. And if you tell fans I played Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3 and I don't get the story, they're like, you idiot. Why would you play a game chronologically based on the numred titles? And you're just like, what? Like,
you see, you created a soulless clone of yourself on the Game Boy Advance. You didn't know that? Oh.
Unbelievable, man.
OBM about Halo says 100% he agrees with what we were saying about we'll never see the continuation directly of 5, but he says he's glad it was scrapped. The writer wasn't good, and he's gone.
It's such a fallacious argument. We'll never know. We'll never know if 5 was good in the context of the trilogy because we'll never see 6.
Well, I mean, presumably they slapped their story points into the logs for Cortana, right? No.
Well, there's stuff there's continuation in Halo canon of what happens too in books and stuff.
But it's confirmation bias to be like, well, we never saw 6, and thank God, because 5. It's just you. Of course, you're agreeing with yourself that it turned out the way you liked it because that's what we got. But it's like you don't know what the alternative was, and I personally,
it's a hard reset. Infinite's a hard reset, and
it is.
You can like it or you cannot.
Some people like it. I think on its own, it does stand as like a pretty good story. But I just think that we'll never know what the alternative was, and I think that's a shame because I think 5 would have been vindicated to some extent. I personally,
I agree with all that, but I still think 5 wasn't very well written to begin with.
Yeah, you can think that, and I
thought the Cortana end beat was good.
Me too. I would have liked to see Halo 6. I think people would have appreciated it. Ames, and I know you will appreciate this. Yeah. I think they would have appreciated 5 in the same way they appreciate Halo 2, which was not received well by fans.
I'm agreeing with you.
In the context of 3, people were like, you know what? That whole story where you play as that weird alien, it ended up being, people like it in retrospect, but they didn't like it back in the day.
Objection.
I'm completely
Halo 2
agree.
is the best Halo, and I
agree with you, but Hogue, we're in the minority. There was so much backlash.
But I literally played it when it came out. I mean, like I can tell you, I liked Halo 2 as it came out, except for the ending.
No, okay.
Me too. But we're
again, general Halo community, when Halo 2 released, there was a massive backlash,
and people were pissed for the same reasons they were pissed at Halo 5. They were like, "Oh, it's writing, it's overwritten, it's you don't play as Master Chief a lot." It's like it was exactly the same thing. I don't know, man. I could get on my soapbox about
Halo
this
2 is the strongest story in Halo.
I agree. I agree. And
I don't agree, but
Halo 4 has
but let's also forget, it is funny to hear people like yourself, Hogue, say it's the strongest story in Halo when we know categorically that it was its legs were chopped out. It didn't tell
3 is 2. I mean, in a perfect world, 3 is 2. I mean, like they're the same game.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. They revived that's Travis's point, is that 3 basically brought 2 into the whole story arc.
I don't kill Soul Reaver for putting the second half in a different game. I mean, that's still a great story in gaming.
But I think a lot of the reason people were upset is because they felt like, the story didn't go the way they were expecting. You're talking about fan expectation and impacting the actual story, and that and it was clearly incomplete. But Halo 5 Guardians was clearly an incomplete game because they were building up to Halo 6, and the fact that we didn't see that, we'll never get Halo 5 Guardians will never have a chance to be redeemed now, because it has now been publicly like shoved into a corner of like
I don't think we can come back from the infinite logs, really. I mean, that would have been your game.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and I feel this way about more than just the Halo franchise. Like we've said, Star Wars. I think this is a problem in like making something creative that lives and that goes into people's minds, and then people talk about it for 1,000 hours on YouTube videos and all their theories and shit. It's just like,
but I would say fans are going to be fans, and developers have to get thicker skins for that.
Yes, that's my point. It is not on the fans to change. I just want people to be more like the Kingdom Hearts developers, the good people at Kingdom Hearts. They're standing by their insane creative vision. More power to you, man.
Those Kingdom Hearts people are in charge of my Final Fantasy VII remake, and I already reject wholeheartedly what they did with it, but I'm interested to see where they go.
For sure. I just think fans should be more open to letting developers do their thing and not try to be the creative director of projects that they're not part of.
Of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I like critique. So I think criticism is a valid form of art in of itself. I like that process, regardless of whether it comes out as I loved it or I hated it. I like that process. Don't change for me, but don't get too mad when I say it's terrible.
And
I agree. That is 100% right.
Those statements are the perfect segue to Halo the Show episode.
Don't change for me, Halo TV show.
Don't change. Well, I don't know. Shouldn't they though? Shouldn't they change?
So I'll set.
Maybe they have a vision here that none of us are seeing. But if it involves this much of Master Chief's butt cheeks, I'm just very perplexed.
The vision. That was the vision that led them to where they got.
Get on them, man.
Well, hold on, Travis. We haven't seen their full vision yet, so slow down.
Agreed. As I said, my stance so far on what I've seen is thanks. I hate it.
Episode 4 is going to be X-rays of Master Chief. Episode 5 is going to be cellular analysis.
See their cells moving around. How much can we unmask the Chief, really?
So, all right. So we'll get into it. Episode 3. So I thought, and I again, everything we talk about here is anecdotal, right? So I talk to some people about the show. I kind of go on what my feedback is to my posts on Twitter. But I think general consensus is that 3 as an episode was better than 2, which I said in my post, it's a low bar. So, that's not an accomplishment in and of itself. I think that Cortana... The fact that it wasn't
better than 1 is what troubles me.
I'd have to think real hard about whether I like 3 or 2 better. Like it's a close race.
So yeah, it's a good question on episode 1. I don't know. I probably put 3 close to 1. I think Cortana, generally speaking, is handled well here. I didn't know where they were going when they started modifying John as John, because that's different. That's not what is supposed to happen. But how they developed Cortana, and they went through the arc of creating her, and then obviously Jen Taylor.
Hold on, pause. So the arc of creating her. See, you rolled your eyes at me. It's fine.
No. I would.
The only pause I wanted to say there is just as a critique overall. The sequence of events that goes from Flash clone conversation to Cortana living in Chief's head, I don't feel, as a lesser Halo fan than you guys, obviously.
Yeah.
It's space magic. It's 10 minutes of waving your hands at how this person and that brain goes with this software and pops out a blue lady.
It was also completely unnecessary because it's not part of Halo. They just added this super complicated layer for no reason.
Yeah. So I'll let you get back to your summary, but I just wanted to point that out while I remembered it, because I was thinking maybe this makes more sense to Ains, but like why this action doing this leads to Cortana is entirely opaque to me watching this show.
No, you're not wrong at all.
It wasn't necessary. It's
no,
like
it wasn't.
Because it was in the game.
It wasn't necessary. I don't know why they did it. I'm assuming they did it to try and tie some more connection to the character themselves, which didn't need to happen. And as far as I'm aware, and I know there's some Halo lore experts far deeper than me, but from a game perspective, or what we know of how Cortana was created, right, and interfaces with Master Chief, it has to do with the Mjolnir armor, and it integrating with the armor set, not John, because there's many points. If you even someone like yourself, Hogue, who's only played the games, you'll know that in multiple Halo games, like Halo 3 is a perfect example. When you lose Cortana,
you get stripped of Cortana.
Yeah, he doesn't have Cortana. It's not like it lives within him. Right, it's part of his interface and the design.
I felt like they wanted to make a reason why they're going to do some superhero stuff with him. So she needs to be a part of his body chemistry.
I felt like it had to be part of his body because they plan on spending a lot of time with Master Chief, not with his armor. And so
it could be.
They couldn't attach Cortana to his armor because then when he's not wearing the helmet, Cortana's not there. So they were like, let's just put it in his head. Let's just put it in his head. That way Cortana's always there, even when he's butt naked. That's why they did it, in my opinion.
It could be.
Then again, I was completely wrong last week when I said they were giving Cortana a body so they could bang.
Don't sell yourself short just yet, Travis. Keep that back in the back corner.
No, she doesn't have a body. What are you talking about?
But
wait, hold on.
We now know that these intelligences have the potential to live in bodies, so it's not out of the question.
Are you kidding me? They could do a Blade Runner 2049 with one of the Silver Team members. Are you kidding?
Okay, so I think that I was just as confused as you, Rick. That's not what I would.
I put it in my head as space magic.
Yeah, and I'm again, I'm giving, I think, more benefit of the doubt than maybe you guys are,
dude. I don't know if you're on this.
Well, hold on, because I didn't even get to finish my point.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped in your summary.
Which is that once you get past that, right, and you say, okay, they're putting Cortana in him for some reason, like we said, and you move past that, right? At that point, I think Cortana was well done. Having Jen Taylor's voice is strong because it associates the character with what you know of Cortana.
Right? Let
me just finish my point on Cortana, please.
Can I just explain why I'm laughing?
Because Good God, guys!
Technically, I got it the exact opposite, Ains.
I do too. I'm
going to put Master Chief in Cortana, but they put Cortana in Master Chief.
Oh boy, that's not why I thought you were laughing, but
that's why I was laughing. Sorry, it was not about your opinion. I'm sorry. Anyway.
So once they get past the space magic, as you rightfully put it, once you get past that, Cortana is handled, I think, extremely well in the sense that she feels like the Cortana we know.
She 100%.
She speaks to, now obviously this is them meeting, so the relationship between her and John obviously is going to be built up, at least I hope it's built up well over the course of the show, but her personality is spot on. Her kind of contentious nature with wanting to do what she thinks is right against the UNSC, wanting to kind of have more control of the situation is spot on. And one little detail, which doesn't make it great, but I thought was very cool, is if you watch this with either headphones or in kind of full surround sound, her voice is even coded differently to where it comes through the speakers differently than every other character in the show.
Yeah.
So as you're watching it, it sounds like she's coming through kind of your head like you would in the game, which I thought was a neat little thing. So I don't know. I think Cortana was the redeeming factor of this episode and that takes you to about like halfway through the episode, 3/4, right? And then they do the thing which I complained about last week, which is too much John. There's too much. Well, I guess I just said it. There's too much John, and it looks like they're trying to set up this arc where, again, he's kind of trying to understand his role and his humanity. And the way they're going about it, I'm not enjoying. It's not what I expect out of the character, one out of the character. I'll stop because I could keep going. But on the Cortana piece, you guys tell me your piece, and then, the rest of the episode you can touch on as well.
I think Jen Taylor is a mistake as Cortana in the TV show. I think it mixes the game in an unfortunate way. So you might remember in the first episode, one of the things I said was that Master Chief's voice isn't at the higher level that gives him that kind of talking above everybody that he and Cortana share in the game. And they did, in fact, put Cortana on that master level that is speaking outside of the scene. So she sounds like I expected Master Chief to sound. And you combine these kinds of things, and it comes across odd. I'm going to compare a weird thing here. J. Jonah Jameson in the new Spider-Man movie that's in a different dimension is a problem for that lore because it's the same actor across these multiple dimensions. And it feels like the similar kind of problem for that's Cortana that I recognize in a universe that I don't. And I really think you should go all in for your separate timeline, because to me watching it, and I think I tweeted this out, but I'm going to be done with Halo from here because this episode didn't work for me. These series get 3 episodes. And then people said I had to watch it for the Bitcast. I don't know. That might convince me, but it sounds like a little troublesome. But I
think you might be curious if we talk about it on the show. And
I might just sit back and be like, they did what?
Yeah, Ames is defending when they put Cortana in a Brute's body, and then they,
come on.
But understand, I really actually, I've always liked her Cortana. I thought this Cortana was nice. It wasn't the Cortana for this show or this John or whatever the heck we're watching. And then in terms of a show, it's just so much pointless blather. It's so many scenes of walking around New York and listening to string music. It's so much scenes with the lady, the girl protagonist. She's going to go fight for Madrigal against the guy that's from The Expanse. And it's like, what are you doing?
Agree. I agree.
This filler.
So I think one of the things I said in my tweet, and then I'll let you go, Travis, because this is all I have, is usually when I'm watching a show, if I can get one plot strand to work for me, I can wait out, okay, she's going to be in the rubble and talking about whatever. And if I can come back to the one thing, that would be cool. They were close to me with the Flash clone scene, because I could actually feel, even if I didn't feel it was Halo, I could feel there being like an interesting plot about this person knowing that they're supposed to sacrifice themselves and having a conversation with Halsey. And I'm like,
and then they threw an acid 2 minutes later.
Yeah, I would have done that as like a season, and then like real metaphorical conversations and getting to the end and then doing that. But like they immediately ditched that for skeezy tech guy. Why? Why is that in what? What are you doing?
That scene was stupid.
That was a very Westworld, like, why, like, I just think the tone is so wrong. They're trying to make it like an HBO show,
right? They make everybody have like vaguely evil intent in like all these.
Yes,
scenes.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about, because that's
the only thing I wanted to say. The music continues to suck, although the
music does
so much more obviously Mass Effect throughout almost all of this episode. I really think they wanted to make a Mass Effect show.
I think they wanted to make a generic science fiction show and just didn't really understand the themes of Halo. Because that's my biggest problem, is like the music is part of it. I don't have as much problem with the Cortana. I tend to agree with Ames that at least that was kind of a bright spot, that it's like, she's good. She's good. I get what you're saying of like it makes me think of this is the wrong show for Cortana to be in. I get that. But my biggest problem, aside from all the obvious stuff like the weird plots and the bad writing and the music and the low production values and certain things, the stuff that kind of everyone is kind of like, it's bad, but we're overlooking it, right?
I got commenters tell me how great it looks, so I don't know.
I think there are aspects of it that look great, and then there's aspects that look bad. It's a weird mix.
But that's like very Sci-Fi Channel.
I know.
Anyway. My biggest problem with it is they continue to chase this HBO, everything needs to be dark and evil, like, Westworld, Game of Thrones style that does not jive at all with, I think, something that is fundamental to Halo, which is the theme of like heroism and humanity coming together to fight a common evil and ultimately overcoming some of its darkness to be the good guys. And I think that they keep adding stuff like that. the flash freezing and having to kill like clearly is obviously just another layer of like, oh yeah, kidnapping kids wasn't bad enough. Let's make Cortana even more crazy where she's like so heartless she can kill herself. And then adding the whole Cortana was meant to take over Master Chief's consciousness. And now she's got like that seed in the back of her head where she's like, I should be in the driver's seat. And it's like already super evil. I'm just like, why do they keep adding these like random dark elements? And Hogue brought one up. I completely forgot about when I saw it. I was like when the scientist tries to kiss the Halsey's body, like that to
has
myself
to be as skeezy as possible. Like
exactly, every character has to be evil and like has their own motives. And there's the only character who's pure is Master Chief, and he's spending all of his time just being a tool and looking off like sad. And I'm just like, dude, this isn't Halo. Like, get to the part where like humanity comes together and we're like, all right, you know what, we're kind of messed up, but when push comes to shove, we're a force for good. Because that's what I think of when I think of Halo. And I don't think I'm fine with all the creative license they're taking to just make it their own and not be the same canon. But I think there's some things you have to get right. And to me, the tone and the theme of Halo is one of them. It's the same on the same level as I think the music is for you, Hogue. Like it has to hit that certain thing to feel like this property. And I just think they've missed so bad on purpose. It's not like they got it wrong. It's like they just were like, nope, we're doing this other thing where it's just going to have a super dark tone, and we're going to chase that.
Are the Covenant exterminating things? I mean, like, are they exterminating people here? Because that Oban pre-scene is like at least 12 years ago. Like when they collect that girl, they just show up, they wander around, and they didn't. I mean, they don't. The Covenant, regardless of whether they are in like the background, being the Covenant that we know, they don't feel like it. It doesn't feel like Earth is under existential threat.
Yeah, they're like presented on neutral footing with humanity as like a force for bad. It's like the Covenant are bad, but so are humans, and it's like it reminds me of like the whataboutism that like Putin does of like America's just as bad as our. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a weird tone. It's such a weird tone, and maybe that's just where we're at as a society. You know, we can't view ourselves as heroic or good or having good features. Maybe that's just where the media is right now, but it bothers me a lot. It really bothers me. So
interesting points. I don't know if I agree as sharply. I do see what you're saying for sure. And I don't know. I don't think like every character shows as bad, right? I think Halsey, I think it still continues to show well. She's that's who Halsey is.
But they're making her even more evil. I feel like I haven't seen the good part of Halsey, and that's fundamental to her character. Is like she has a good heart. It's just that she's willing to kind of like throw off the yoke of morality when she thinks it's necessary. In this one, it seems like she enjoys it. Like she's like plotting. She's like Littlefinger. It's so weird. Yeah, she's got like a smirk. Like, yeah, now I get to kill my own self, and I get off. It's just like, what, dude? Like, what? That wasn't even part of her character, and like. I know it's easy to like throw off as just a weird moment, like that scientist trying to kiss the body, but that to me is like that idea kind of personified of like everyone's got to be a monster, and I just
because presumably Master Chief comes around to humanity is what's worth saving. Like that's
I'm assuming that's where they have to go.
That's where they seemingly are driving to. I mean, they have to really. I mean, yeah. Well, they don't have to, but that seems what they're driving towards. But it's too on the nose, right? Like they're like, oh, he takes out his emotional chip, and now he's going to go watch a cello concert, and that gives him emotion. And it's like, come on, guys, it's too on the nose. Like you don't have to do that. Even the games do better than that. It's showing what drives him for humanity. So yeah, again, I don't think it's brilliant. I don't think it's incredible, but I did enjoy episode 3 better than 2 by a decent amount. Is it as good as episode 1? I don't know. I don't know what I'd rate this one, honestly. I'd probably be in the 6 or 7 range for this one, too. Personally.
It seemed like filler. I have trouble rating filler. Like, I don't know that much moved.
Yeah. Mike somehow Phil did a lot of filler. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got different comments here. Dave says he's all here for the drama, so he likes it. Michael Patton says, it's like you guys don't watch television programs. Smart guys with bad takes.
The tendency I have, unfortunately, is to watch good and well-written television programs. So I might not be. Be ready for Halo.
Some people respect their time and aren't okay with the Netflix model of like, let's do 8 episodes of filler for what could have been a 2-hour movie. It's just
I like Michael. No, you're allowed to like what you like, by the way. And I do think some people are coming to it as, hey, it's a sci-fi show, and it hasn't done anything egregiously wrong. And there's some resources put at it. And as a fan of sci-fi, and I was in, I'm an older guy, so it was much more wastelandy-ish than it is now. You tend to find something that kind of works for you, and it works. It's not Halo. Maybe it can be something decent at that point in time. I lose faith in that because it's just so darn clunky. I mean, it's the exposition is clunky. The montages are clunky. God, do I not care about the Madrigal plot line at all? I mean, I presume what the setup there is that girl's going to go off on her own plot. Chief's going to go off on his own plot for a while. And like the end sequence is like, she's going to win or take over the planet or whatever. And then the Covenant's going to come and glass it. And that's going to be a moment for Master Chief. But like, I don't care. I don't care because the one thing that Halo used to do was big damn heroes, and it used to do existential threat. Like even in the instruction booklet of Halo, explaining why they could not let any bit of data be captured from the Pillar of Autumn or from Chief or anything else, because if anything led to Earth, that humanity was over. Like, how is that not built into one sentence in your show? Like that's the fundamental kind of tension. And I said, Reach feels so sleepy. It's the sleepiest existential threat ever. Everybody's just kind of chilling. John's going to cello concerts,
Yeah, I some of the guys are disagreeing here, and I again be very clear that if you love it, great.
Yeah,
that's great.
I'm not here to tell you not to like something.
And this is the most cop-out phrase ever, I realize, but I don't dislike it. I'm clearly a little higher on it than you guys are, and that's fine. But I'm not over the moon about it. There are aspects, and of course I understand that Chief needs to find his humanity and build to that. But that can be done through a series of events that happen over the course of a show or a series or a season, what have you. I think the way they've approached Chief here at the beginning, for me personally, is just to I don't know. It seems too aggressive. They're trying to show you that Chief is human and has feelings and, needs to understand the breadth of humanity and what he's fighting for. And they need to do all this. And they're trying to do it all in a couple episodes. And I think that's my kind of point is like, you don't need to have him rushing to do all this right at the start of season 1, right? That's something that should be built upon, that you start to understand about his character over time. It's kind of like we talked about last week. Like, you come into the show, and if you don't know Halo, you don't know why the Spartans are special, other than the fact that they said, in the show, these guys are super fast, it can kill everything. You know what I mean? They show the combat scene in episode 1, but there's no real understanding of the Spartan program or what makes them inherently unique, or what there's lack of context. And
for all the exposition they do, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, there's just not a sense of the world or the situation that the Covenant versus Earth are in, or even realistically, that even though they spent so much time on it, what the outer colonies and the Earth are. There's no relationship context, because they're so invested in this emotional, psyche-driven plot line for Master Chief, and I'm not interested. I'm not interested. And when I'm not interested in Madrigal, and I'm not interested in what you're trying to sell me with Master Chief, I feel like I wasted my time.
Yeah, and I said last week that Master Chief is the show for me. Master Chief is Halo, right? To a degree, of course, for me personally. And I can fill in. I think as AO said that some of the lore he really appreciates that they're touching on, and to a sense, I'd agree. I'd agree, because I can fill in some of the gaps with what I know of the Halo universe and the lore, but not all.
It shouldn't be mandatory to watch the show, though. That's my problem with it.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And it goes back to the question of how do you take a 20-year franchise that has a gigantic amount of lore? It'd be, and do this. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of thoughts, and obviously there's some people really high on it. There's some people really low on it, and everything in between, which is probably to be expected of a Halo TV show. I don't know, but
did anybody think it was going to be universally loved?
Yeah, exactly. This was never going to be universally liked, so that's fine. Yeah. But anyway, that's episode 3. We've talked about it a lot. We will continue to keep our Halo episode discussion at the tail end of Bitcast every week, and we'll see how it goes.
It's a long show.
It is. We've gone long today. In fact, this might be one of our longest Bitcasts ever. So
please keep in mind that the DMs before the show is we might end short today.
It's true. It's true. Well, we spent like half an hour on my achievement topic at the beginning, which is I even said before we started, I don't want to say this because it's going to make us go too long. But anyway, it's been fun conversation though. We always have a good conversation. Chat, you've been great today as always, and yeah, we'll continue to talk more about this as the season goes on. So I will tell you, I do get excited every Thursday now to like see what my calendar looks like for the day and see when I can watch Halo early in the day.
Okay.
So yeah,
I try to watch it while I'm on a jog. That's my new level of how much I care. It went from big premiere on my 80-inch TV to like, all right, how am I going to squeeze this in as least painfully as possible? So I don't know. I'm hopeful it'll change. I'm interested to see how it goes. But yeah, the 3 episodes I've seen so far are not good.
Fair enough. All right, boys. So coming to season gaming this week. So we recorded our first Patreon roundtable yesterday. This is for producer level Patreons. That goes up later today. Just a roundtable with some of the season gaming contributors. We had a lot of good chat about content creation and a bunch of other topics we dug into. So if you're a supporter on Patreon, look for that. And if you're not, well, check it out and see if you want to become part of the community and help us with what we do over at Season Gaming. We'd appreciate it. The video I said last week of the Mumbo Jumbo statue from Banjo-Kazooie is live. It's a pretty cool looking piece. I was going to set it up here for the show and I forgot, but yeah, you can check that out if you're interested. Got an article I'm working on Gran Turismo 7. The first update of promised updates to that game has come out to fix some of the monetization issues and other things that players were giving feedback about. So I want to touch on that. And then Cast Co-op returns this week as well. So me, Joe, and Luke will be putting together a new episode by midweek. So you can check that out. But that's about all for us. Travis, hit us with what's happening, man.
Yeah, I've got a game review going up next week that I can't talk about yet, but I think it's the 18th. So, actually, maybe it'll be the week after. I'm not sure. I need to check the embargo date. But I'm working on that. I've done a bunch of content at IGN.com this week that you can find online. Yeah, just, watch my shows. I'm on a Destiny show on Thursdays. You can follow me on Twitter at TyGuyTravis. And yeah, got some interesting content coming up. I also did a raid guide for Destiny. Ooh. If you want to do the Valve the Disciple guide, I made a guide. It's not live yet, but it should be in the next couple days. And it's yeah, there you go. I'm trying to try my hand at some new content stuff for IGN. So
cool.
Yeah,
cool. Rick,
I continue to roll around YouTube talking about business and law. Activision-Blizzard, Microsoft, everybody else continues to give me a lot to work with, as well as headlines and reporting that sometimes isn't fully up to speed on some of that stuff. So I did a couple videos this week. I'll continue to do those kinds of things. And we'll probably be talking a little bit about Activision-Blizzard still. As I mentioned in this video, there's some questions people have about how they're dealing with their quality assurance folks. And I suspect I might just do a breakdown of what was announced for that Max Payne announcement as well. And of course, everything else that happens, because I never know what I'm going to do a video on when I get video time, because the video game industry moves really fast. If you're interested in that, youtube.com/Hoglaw. And otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoglaw, same spelling, where I talk about a little bit more of a breadth of issues, movies I like, TV shows I don't, and everything in between.
Cheers, man. All right, chat, you've been great. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Audio listeners or people checking this out later, we've actually gotten like several hundred views lately post recording live. So if you do check us out on YouTube after we're done live, really appreciate it. And leave us a comment, leave us a like, and let us know, since you're not here in chat live, if there's anything you'd like us to kind of touch on in the following week, we'd be happy to do that. Just leave us a comment. So thanks as always for tuning in to Bitcast, your weekly show covering all things Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo with industry, technical, and legal insight. Until next week.